senses, Wild Mutt snapped back to reality. But just as it regained its bearings, the blob alien's sharp claws had already reached out. It opened its razor-sharp paws and swept forward with brutal force, instantly shredding the creature's disgusting tentacles. They exploded into countless droplets of green slime, splattering onto the floor. In the next instant, Wild Mutt leaped forward, summoning every ounce of strength. Clenching its iron fist, it slammed it into the opposite wall with thunderous force. Boom! A thunderclap-like explosion echoed as the solid stone wall instantly shattered. Black cracks radiated outward at lightning speed, spreading from Wild Mutt's fist. The terrifying force shattered every water pipe within the wall, sending gushing water spraying everywhere, droplets splattering onto the ground. Sensing the surging water, Wild Mutt leapt away instantly, distancing itself from the dangerous wall. Splash! In the next instant, countless surging water columns erupted from the wall, like ferocious, terrifying dragons, instantly submerging everything in the alley. The blob aliens screamed, struggling desperately in the water, but they were quickly dissolved and swallowed by the endless torrent, leaving not a trace behind. After dispatching the monsters, Wild Mutt growled lowly, leaping between the houses until it swiftly located Grandpa and the others. Roar! The Wild Mutt landed before Ben with a thud. Oh my gosh, a big dog with no eyes! Ben stumbled backward. Gwen rolled her eyes and smacked her cousin on the head, pointing at the Omnitrix emblem on the Wild Mutt's body. Look closely, dweeb cousin. That's Lucian. Fine. Ben innocently rubbed his head. Lucian, did you catch that woman? Grandpa stepped forward and asked. The Wild Mutt shook its head and growled softly. Seems my cousin can't talk, Gwen sighed helplessly. Suddenly, the Wild Mutt seemed to catch a scent, its nose twitching slightly. It let out a low growl and took off running. Come on, let's follow it! Grandpa shouted immediately. Ben and Gwen exchanged a glance before following after it. Chapter 27, Chapter 27, Underground Base. The dim underground tunnel was rough and uneven, scarred with countless digging marks as if something had forcibly bored its way through. Oil lamps hung along both sides of the tunnel walls, lighting up the packed earth and stretching all the way into the pitch-black depths. Wild Mutt charged forward on powerful limbs, claws scraping against the ground and throwing off sparks as it ran. Grandpa Max and the others followed close behind, running at full speed, panting heavily yet still falling far behind. What did Cuz smell to make him run that fast? I'm about to drop dead here, Ben panted, but didn't stop running. Doofus, if you can't take it, stop and rest. Don't push yourself. We'll wait for you ahead, Gwen said calmly. Having practiced karate and learned water magic, Gwen's physical ability far surpassed that of normal people. This level of exertion meant little to her. Grandpa Max wiped sweat from his forehead, running steadily ahead of the two. His pace was even faster than Gwen's. It was hard to believe he was an old man. Grandpa, wait up! Ben gasped, reaching out. Seriously, what did you do when you were younger? You run faster than a rabbit. He couldn't understand it. It was one thing for Gwen to outrun him, but Grandpa too? It made him question his whole life. In truth, if Ben knew Grandpa Max's past identity, he wouldn't be so shocked or disheartened. Grandpa still got it, Gwen said wide-eyed, then turned to Ben. Hey, dweeb, Grandpa and I will go on ahead. You follow us. We'll wait up front. Her water magic was especially effective against the blob aliens. It would help her cousin in the fight to come. Wait for me. Before Ben could finish, Gwen had already sprinted off, vanishing down the dark tunnel in an instant. Tap tap tap. After an unknown amount of time, Wild Mutt sensed an opening ahead. It came to an abrupt stop, the sensory organs on its neck pulsing as it picked up a massive space below. Hundreds of cocoon-like pods were clustered underneath, radiating heat. Based on thermal readings, they appeared to contain imprisoned elders. At the center of those countless cocoons was a huge flying spacecraft. Inside, blob aliens were constantly moving about, hauling more cocoons in and out. Wild Mutt growled lowly, realizing the truth. These horrific blob aliens planned to preserve all the elderly as food, then ship them off into space to their home planet. Beep, beep, beep. Just then, the Omnitrix symbol on Wild Mutt's chest began flashing. It growled again, quickly turning and sprinting back down the tunnel like a gust of wind to avoid alerting the creatures below. Boom! A burst of crimson light flared from its body, and Wild Mutt reverted to Lucian's original form. Looking at the Omnitrix, now flashing red, Lucian let out a faint sigh. He'd have to wait before transforming again. The transformation time had increased to 12 minutes, but it still wasn't enough. Tap tap tap. Footsteps echoed rapidly from behind. Lucian's brow furrowed as he shifted into a ready stance. If it was a blob alien, things could get messy. Is that you, Lucian? Grandpa Max's voice echoed from the other end of the tunnel. Hearing it, Lucian finally let out a breath of relief. Lucian, you're back to normal. Grandpa Max jogged over, panting hard, hands braced on his knees. For someone his age, being able to run that fast was already impressive. Yet, we'll have to wait for the Omnitrix to finish recharging. Lucian shrugged. Rushing in now would just be suicide. Soon, Gwen came running up behind them. "'Cuz." Her face was flushed. "What's it look like up ahead?" Lucian told them everything he had sensed, in full detail. Grandpa Max's face grew serious as he turned toward the dark depths of the tunnel. "I'm worried we're out of time. From the looks of it, they're about to take off. Our appearance must have thrown those monsters off their plan." Lucian nodded, then added, "But it's fine. There are still plenty of cocoons left. Moving all of them onto that ship will take time. Aunt Vera must be in there. We have to save them," Gwen said, worry flashing across her face. "Exactly. We can't let any of those freaks get away." Ben came running up, drenched in sweat and gasping for air. He was exhausted, but his eyes burned with determination. Lucian gave him an approving nod. That was Ben Tennyson, still full of courage and justice, even without the Omnitrix, never backing down from a fight. "We'll hide near the tunnel entrance and watch their movements," Lucian said with a faint smile. "Once the watch is charged, it'll be the end for those snot slug creeps. 'Cuz, let's beat the slime out of them," Ben said, clenching his fist. Ding! Alien hacker mission triggered. Prevent the blob aliens from returning to outer space. Rescue the imprisoned townspeople. Complete the mission to gain a random enhancement effect. A string of system prompts rang out in Lucian's mind. His eyes sharpened. What kind of enhancement would he get this time? The group stayed hidden at the tunnel's edge, quietly watching the activity below. There weren't many blob aliens left. Aside from the ones taken out by XLR8 and Wild Mutt, only 50 or 60 remained. About 10 minutes later, a faint beep came from Lucian's wrist. The Omnitrix turned from red to green, fully charged. "The watch is ready. Time to move," Lucian said, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. "'Cuz, I'm going with you. My water magic is their weakness, I can take them down easily," Gwen said, excitement clear in her voice. She could finally fight side by side with her cousin. "Oh man, then what am I supposed to do?" Ben groaned, his head drooping. Without powers, he felt useless. Lucian patted his shoulder and said quietly, "Ben, Gwen and I will draw their attention. You and Grandpa sneak into the alien ship and get those cocoons out." "Awesome! We'll save Aunt Vera and the others and rescue the whole town." Ben's eyes lit up. "Remember, Ben, even without powers, you can still be a hero." Lucian looked at him meaningfully, the corner of his mouth curling into a grin. "Besides, it's not like you don't have." Ben scratched his head, confused by what his cousin meant. "All right, Enough talk. Time to move. Lucian's tone hardened. If we wait any longer, those disgusting slugs will take off. Gwen glanced over the edge of the tunnel and shuddered. "'Cause, it's so high, how are we supposed to get down?" The drop from the tunnel to the chamber below was at least 3 or 4 stories. The walls were nearly vertical without gear, no normal person could make it down safely. If they jumped, they'd break their legs, if not worse. The blob aliens wouldn't even need to attack, they'd lose on impact. Lucian thought for a moment, then a grin slowly formed on his lips. He had an idea. If the entrance couldn't lead straight down, then he'd make a path himself. With that thought, Lucian raised his Omnitrix, selected an alien, and slammed his hand down. Chapter 28, Chapter 28, Underground Battle. Boom! A brilliant green light burst through the dark tunnel, illuminating the walls before vanishing just as quickly. The next instant, a tall figure appeared before the group, its entire body a translucent light green, solid and majestic. 4 sharp spikes jutted from its back, emanating an immense, commanding power. Diamond Head. Ben's eyes lit up the moment he saw the familiar form, excitement and awe flooding his face. The image of Diamond Head's recent battle with the robots was still vivid in his mind. "'Cuz, you look amazing!" Gwen couldn't help but exclaim. Grandpa Max nodded. "This alien is strong. Those blob aliens shouldn't be a problem. Let's move out." Diamond Head gave a short nod, a glint flashing in his crystal eyes. He stretched out his right hand toward the drop below the tunnel entrance. "Rise." As the word left his mouth, a layer of crystal steps burst from the opening and began spreading rapidly. More and more formed in succession, extending downward until they reached the space below. Within seconds, a dazzling crystal staircase stood before them, grand and radiant, like a staircase built for a king's descent. Ben and Gwen stared in awe, completely dumbfounded. What kind of power was this? He could even make stairs appear out of thin air. If that was possible, did it mean people wouldn't need to buy houses anymore? Just buy some land and conjure a crystal villa? Oh yeah, that's awesome! Ben cheered after a moment of stunned silence. "All right, time to head down," Diamond Head said calmly, charging forward as his crystal feet clinked against the stairs. "'Cuz, wait for me!" Gwen shouted, sprinting after him on her slender legs. "And me!" Ben was just about to dash down too, eager to help him fight. "Wait, Ben," Grandpa Max grabbed his arm. "We stay here for now. Once Lucian and Gwen lure those monsters out of the ship, we'll move in and rescue the trapped elders." "Ah, come on! When will I finally get powers strong enough to beat up those nasty aliens myself?" Ben sighed in frustration, his shoulders slumping like a deflated balloon. "Ben, having powers isn't always a good thing," Grandpa said, patting his head. "I just want you to be happy and grow up healthy." Ben shook his head. "No, Grandpa. If I had powers like Cuz, I'd love it. I'd crush alien monsters every day and become a hero everyone looks up to." "No. Ah, forget it. You're still young. Some things you'll understand later." Grandpa shook his head, giving up the lecture. "At least I wouldn't be useless like now," Ben muttered stubbornly. Grandpa Max looked at his flushed, determined face and couldn't help but smile wryly. "You know, you remind me of myself when I was your age." He placed his wrinkled hand on Ben's shoulder. "Ben, remember what you said today. No matter what happens in the future, I want you to hold on to that resolve." Seeing the sincerity in his grandfather's eyes, Ben felt something stir inside him. He nodded silently. Tap tap tap. Leaping from the crystal staircase, Diamond Head slammed into the ground with a deafening crash, shaking the tunnel and sending dust billowing into the air. Gwen followed gracefully, her movements light as a cat's. Her feet touched down on the glittering crystal steps as she descended, landing beside Diamond Head after a few swift leaps. The noise immediately drew the enemy's attention. "Alice, her long hair flowing, had been standing at the entrance of the alien spacecraft. At the sudden sound, she snapped her head around, a crimson gleam flashing in her clear eyes, cold and menacing. "It's the kid from Vera's family, still alive? Looks like that matcha cake I sent didn't do the job. Useless fool." Alice ground her teeth, her gaze shifting toward the other figure. "A Petrosapien? Impossible." Her eyes widened in disbelief. It was one thing to turn into a Vulpimancer, but this. Then her gaze locked on the Omnitrix glowing on Diamond Head's chest. "So that's it, the legendary Omnitrix, the most powerful alien weapon in the universe." Her eyes burned brighter as she clenched her fists. "If I could get my hands on it, I wouldn't have to sneak around draining human life anymore. Then the entire Earth, no, the entire universe would be our feeding ground." "Hey, you creepy freak, what are you mumbling about? That matcha cake you sent last time wasn't half bad, though." Gwen grinned, taunting her. Alice smiled sweetly, but her eyes turned cold as venom. "Little girl, do you even know what you're saying? Cut the talk." Diamond Head lifted both arms, transforming them into a barrage of crystal spikes that gleamed with a deadly light, all aimed straight at Alice. "Get out here!" Alice snapped, shouting into the spacecraft. Swish! 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 In the next instant, white-haired elders burst out of the spacecraft like wild beasts. Their bodies were hunched, their faces old and wrinkled, but their eyes were filled with murderous rage. "Attack! Capture those two!" Alice ordered coldly. "Roar! Eat them! Devour them all!" Dozens of blob aliens charged forward like mad animals, claws flailing, snarls echoing through the tunnel. "Come on, all of you!" Diamond Head roared, unleashing a storm of crystal shards that shot forward like a rain of blades, tearing into the advancing horde. Whoosh! 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 The vicious blob aliens were engulfed in the barrage, their bodies pierced with glowing green spikes until they were riddled with wounds. "That's amazing!" Gwen exclaimed. But Diamond Head didn't let his guard down. His golden eyes stayed fixed on the grotesque creatures. "Roar! Pathetic! You think that's enough to kill us? How naive! We're immune to physical attacks." The blob aliens sneered as their slimy bodies writhed, forcing out the crystal spikes. The shards clattered to the ground in a cascade of sharp sounds. Clatter! Their wounds began to seal instantly. The green mucus filled the gaps in their flesh, and in seconds, they were completely healed. "See that, Petrosapien?" Alice said, striding forward confidently. "With that kind of attack, you can't kill us. Why not surrender quietly? It'll save you the pain." Standing at the head of the blob aliens, Alice smirked, utterly certain of victory. Diamond Head's lips curled into a cold grin. "You think I can't hurt you? Do you really believe you disgusting slugs can hurt me? Oh? Then let's find out." Alice's eyes glinted with killing intent. "Then stop talking and come at me. Rip him apart!" Alice screamed, veins bulging as she ordered the blob aliens to attack. Diamond Head roared back, surging forward as pure battle energy erupted from his body. He charged straight into the horde. "By the oath of water, in thy name, I call upon the spirit's power shoot!" Gwen chanted, firing her aqua arrow into the fray. At that moment, all the blob aliens focused on Diamond Head and Gwen, howling furiously as they launched a wild assault. But none of them noticed two figures quietly slipping into the alien spacecraft from behind. Chapter 29, Chapter 29, Blob Queen. Inside the alien saucer, the lights burned bright. Dozens of silkworm-like cocoons lined the floor, glowing with a faint green translucence. Inside each one curled an elderly figure, eyes shut tight in deep sleep. Ben and Grandpa Max had already slipped into the ship and now stood before the eerie sight. "Grandpa, we have to move fast," Ben said, his eyes full of determination. Right. Grandpa Max nodded. Without wasting a second, the two began hauling the green cocoons as quickly as they could. To work faster, they laid them flat and rolled them down the saucer's ramp, sending them tumbling into the open space below. Dodging an attack from a blob alien, Gwen spun around, chanting a quick incantation as a surge of water gathered in her palm. Swoosh! The furious creature was struck through the chest by the aqua arrow, its body bursting apart into a puddle of green slime that never reformed. Water, their one true weakness. Several blob aliens roared in rage, flailing their grotesque tentacles as they charged at Gwen. Think again. In a flash, Diamond Head appeared in front of her. He slammed his palm onto the ground, instantly raising a towering crystal barrier that blocked every incoming strike. Thanks, cuz, Gwen said quickly, her cheeks slightly flushed. She looked at Diamond Head's broad, gleaming back with growing admiration mixed with a quiet frustration that Lucian was her cousin. Diamond Head gave a small nod before launching himself forward, his powerful legs shattering the ground beneath him as he shot out like a cannonball. Over 50 blob aliens roared, their twisted tentacles cracking through the air like monstrous whips as they lashed at him. Boom! A storm of tentacles slammed into the spot where Diamond Head charged, the impact thundering through the chamber, shaking loose clouds of dust and shards of rock. "Ha, let's see you crawl out of that," Alice sneered coldly. "Oh? That was supposed to hurt." A tall, gleaming figure stepped through the smoke, voice dripping with disdain. "What?" Alice's eyes widened in disbelief. Even the combined attack of dozens of blob aliens couldn't take down this Petrosapien. "That's all you've got? Pathetic." Diamond Head strode calmly from the settling dust, completely unscathed. An ordinary Petrosapien might not have survived that, but the Omnitrix optimized every alien's genetic structure, making each form a perfected version of its species. And after destroying Vilgax's robot earlier, Diamond Head's crystal structure had toughened by another 10%. These disgusting blob aliens didn't stand a chance of scratching him. "Looks like I'll have to handle this myself," Alice said, her tone turning icy. As soon as she spoke, her body began to change. The beautiful, elegant Alice started melting, her form dissolving into a writhing, blood-red mass until she transformed into a monstrous crimson sludge creature. "The Blob Queen!" Diamond Head scoffed. The blood-red monster let out a piercing shriek, her twin head tentacles thrashing wildly. "You dare mock me? You'll die for that! Everyone attack! Tear them apart!" At her command, the blob aliens roared furiously, whipping their tentacles as they lunged toward Diamond Head again. The Blob Queen charged in behind them, her entire body radiating a dark red aura as she rushed at Diamond Head with murderous fury, determined to crush him to pieces. Surrounded by dozens of enemies, Diamond Head still fought with ease. His body's hardened crystal rendered their attacks useless. He seized one blob alien and hurled it against the stone wall, splattering it into a puddle of green ooze. Then he raised both arms, firing a barrage of crystal blades that rained down like a storm, shredding every blob alien in front of him into dripping piles of slime. "Your turn." In a blur, Diamond Head closed in on the Blob Queen. With a sweeping motion, he formed a massive crystal halberd in his hand and leapt high, bringing it down in a crushing strike toward her. The Queen screamed, her body twisting violently as 6 blood-red tentacles shot out to intercept. Clang! A sharp metallic ring echoed as her tentacles caught the halberd mid-swing, gripping it tightly. Diamond Head growled, tightening his hold and pressing down with raw strength. The Queen's tentacles trembled under the force her body straining, barely able to withstand it. Diamond Head's strength was far beyond her own. "Die!" the Blob Queen roared. Splash! 2 more massive tentacles burst from her blood-red, viscous body, covered in countless spikes as they whipped violently toward Diamond Head's ribs. Diamond Head's eyes narrowed. He hadn't expected her to have a hidden move left. But he wasn't about to back down. With a thought, sharp crystal spikes erupted from his sides, stretching several meters long before colliding head-on with the incoming tentacles. Boom! A thunderous explosion echoed through the chamber as the crimson tentacles smashed against the crystal spikes, shattering into a rain of slime that splattered across the floor. The crystal spikes weren't untouched. Deep cracks spread across them under the immense impact, nearly breaking them apart. The Blob Queen simply let out a low, mocking laugh, unfazed. That short exchange had bought her time. Her minions were already closing in. With the Petrozapion's armor damaged, surely he wouldn't be able to withstand another wave of attacks, right? Diamond Head turned toward the oncoming horde and snorted. Those weaklings can't lay a scratch on me. He withdrew the cracked spikes, and the fractures vanished instantly, his crystalline body returning to flawless perfection. Boom! Boom! The ground trembled as the fierce battle raged on. Surrounded by enemies, Diamond Head fought with unstoppable strength, trading blows with the Blob Queen and her swarm of monsters. This can't go on, he thought grimly. If I drag this out, I'll run out of time. The Omnitrix would soon time out, and when that happened, he'd revert to Lucian, completely defenseless. He needed a way to finish them all at once. Knocking a blob alien aside, Diamond Head glanced around and his gaze caught something above the thick metal water pipe running across the ceiling. Droplets slid from its surface, dripping steadily to the ground. His eyes gleamed. He lifted his arm and fired a volley of crystal shards toward the pipe, aiming to burst it open. But the Blob Queen bellowed, unleashing a storm of tentacles that wrapped around the shards midair and hurled them to the ground. "Don't even think about it," she shrieked. "Pin him down. Don't give him a chance to breathe." Once again, the battlefield erupted in chaos. Not far away, Gwen loosed several aqua arrows in rapid succession, cutting down the blob aliens surrounding her. Seeing Diamond Head besieged on all sides, she clasped her hands together and began to chant an ancient spell. "Spirit of Mist, power of the demon, cloud their eyes, protect my form." Chapter 30, The Invitation. Inside the cave, thick mist began to spread, blanketing everything in a hazy fog that quickly reduced visibility to almost nothing. Gwen continued chanting her spell, hoping that the Mist Spirit spell would work against the blob aliens. The Mist Spirit spell was an introductory spell from the Water Magic Grimoire. It created a dense fog to obscure enemies' vision and surround them in vapor, mainly used for escape, disruption, or surprise attacks. If they're afraid of water, then they should fear mist too, Gwen thought to herself. Sure enough, the moment the blob aliens touched the fog, they let out piercing shrieks. Their tentacles twisted violently as they lost control of their bodies. Thick green slime began corroding their flesh. The mist in the air was pure poison to them. Dozens of blob aliens stopped their assault on Diamond Head, collapsing to the ground with agonized screams. They pounded the floor and crashed into the cavern walls, splattering sticky slime everywhere. As Gwen continued chanting, the mist grew denser, eating away at their bodies even faster. Soon, it would wipe out every last one of them. The Blob Queen glared with blood-red eyes, her skin stinging as if countless ants were gnawing at her. But her strength far surpassed that of her underlings. Unlike them, the mist only burned her skin, it couldn't inflict any real damage. Yet Diamond Head was still standing. If she lost her footing here, he would destroy her completely. "Looks like your end has come." With that, Diamond Head swung his spiked fist, aiming straight for the Blob Queen's head. She roared in rage, her crimson tentacles morphing into gleaming blades that shot forward, slashing toward his punch. Crack! Diamond Head's crystal fist smashed through the crimson blades instantly, but the Blob Queen used the recoil to hurl herself backward, widening the distance between them. Her form flickered, reappearing before several blob aliens. Then, without hesitation, she opened her blood-stained jaws and swallowed them whole. In seconds, her body expanded, and her aura flared even stronger than before. "Try this!" Diamond Head lifted his arm, summoning a crystal spear. With a powerful throw, he sent it hurtling upward like a roaring blue dragon, targeting the water pipe above. If he could break the pipe, the incoming flood would destroy the Blob Queen once and for all. But she caught on to his plan instantly. A massive blood-red hand surged from her body, blotting out the light as it wrapped around the crystal spear. Crack! The spear pierced through the monstrous hand, but it became lodged inside, unable to move further. "You'll all die here," the Blob Queen snarled, her blood-red eyes gleaming with vicious fury. Her body writhed and expanded, unleashing a swarm of crimson tentacles that swept up the remaining blob aliens. Then she opened her enormous maw and devoured them all in one gulp. Boom! Her aura exploded, her body swelling like a balloon at terrifying speed. Within seconds, she had grown over 20 meters tall, transforming into a monstrous giant, no longer the Blob Queen, but the Sludge Empress. "'Cuz, I'm here!" Gwen shouted, panic flashing across her face as she ran forward. The towering red creature ahead loomed monstrously large and hideous. Gritting her teeth, Gwen fired an aqua arrow straight at its chest. The shot hit perfectly, but all it did was send a faint ripple across the Sludge Empress's body before fading away. Not enough impact. Diamond Head shook his head. "We'll need more water to finish her." "Everyone must die," the Sludge Empress bellowed, her deep voice rumbling through the cave. "The Omnitrix will be mine." With a furious swing, her massive tentacles came crashing down toward the two below. Diamond Head scooped Gwen into his arms and summoned a solid crystal wall before them, bracing himself as he leapt back. Boom! The enormous tentacles slammed into the barrier, shattering it into glittering fragments that scattered across the floor. Dodging the blow, Diamond Head gently set Gwen down. "Gwen, can you still use the aqua arrow?" "I can cast it 2 more times," Gwen said, her tone weary. Frequent use of magic drained her energy heavily, her body would need time to recover. "Good. 2 shots will do." Diamond Head nodded. "When I give the signal, aim for the Sludge Empress's eyes." Though puzzled, Gwen nodded firmly. Meanwhile, Ben and Grandpa Max had already moved all the cocoons outside, stacking them around the alien ship. "So, you've got help? How bold of you," the Sludge Empress roared as she spotted them. A surge of fury boiled within her. These pathetic, deceitful humans had dared sneak aboard her ship to steal her food. Unforgivable. "Hey, freak! Over here," a voice suddenly shouted from the side. The Sludge Empress snapped her head around only for her vision to go dark. Agonizing pain tore through her eyes, as if they'd been stabbed with needles. Gwen exhaled softly, a sly smile forming on her lips. The moment the Sludge Empress turned, Gwen had fired 2 precise aqua arrows straight into her eyes. "Nice shot, Gwen." Beneath Diamond Head's feet, a towering crystal platform rose. He lifted his arm, summoning a gleaming crystal longsword, then hurled it upward with all his might. The blade sliced cleanly through the thick metal water pipe above. Crash! In the next instant, torrents of water cascaded down like a raging storm, engulfing the Sludge Empress completely. "Ah! I won't forgive you for this," she shrieked, her voice echoing through the cavern. But the roaring flood battered her relentlessly. Her massive body began to dissolve, melting into crimson sludge that vanished into the swirling current. "Awesome! Cuz beat the alien freak again!" Ben cheered, pumping his fist. Grandpa Max smiled warmly, watching Lucian and Gwen with pride. "It's thanks to you two working together. If you hadn't, the whole town might have been doomed. It's all Gwen's doing. It's all Cuz's doing." They looked at each other and burst out laughing. "All right, now that the monster's gone, let's get Aunt Vera and the other townsfolk back home," Grandpa Max said with a grin. "But there are so many of them." "That'll take hours," Ben groaned. Lucian tapped his Omnitrix. "Not with XLR8. It'll only take a few minutes." Once the watch recharged, Lucian transformed into XLR8 and swiftly transported everyone back to town. Ding successfully rescued the imprisoned townspeople. Gained enhancement effect, crystal hardness plus 15%. Diamond head, current crystal hardness plus 25%. A series of system prompts echoed in Lucian's mind. If it ever reaches 100%, just how hard would it become, he muttered to himself. The next morning, in the desert town, everyone gathered beside the rust bucket, ready to head for their next destination. Max, make sure to bring Ben and the others again next time. I really like them, Aunt Vera said with a warm smile. Of course, Grandpa Max chuckled. Oh, Lucian, I made this special jelly just for you, chicken, red bean, and lemon flavor to celebrate your return. Aunt Vera handed him a small bowl of wobbly green jelly. Thank you, Aunt Vera. Lucian forced a polite smile, suppressing a wave of nausea. He couldn't hurt her feelings. And me, a pleasant voice called suddenly. Everyone turned to see a tall woman jogging toward them, slender, fair-skinned, and strikingly beautiful. Alice. Lucian blinked, surprised. Alice nodded, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Are you Lucian? I am. Why? That's wonderful. Her eyes sparkled with joy. She'd expected him to be some rugged fighter, but he was far more handsome than she imagined. Lowering her head, Alice nervously twisted the hem of her shirt. I heard from my father about what you did. You're the hero of this town, so I'd like to invite you to dinner tonight to thank you properly. Alice blurted out in one breath. Say yes, say yes. Ben whispered with a mischievous grin. Dweeb, Gwen muttered, smacking his head. She clearly wasn't on board with the idea. Still, she couldn't deny it. Alice was stunning. Even her cousin, as righteous as he was, might not be able to turn her down, right? But Gwen wasn't sure. She could only pray silently. I appreciate it, Lucian said calmly, stepping into the rust bucket. But... Alice started, her voice laced with disappointment. Lucian paused and waved his hand slightly. Maybe next time. If fate allows. All right. Alice smiled, her beauty soft and radiant. Moments later, the group boarded the rust bucket and continued their journey. That night, a cold wind swept through the town, rustling the trees in the courtyard. Inside the mayor's house, Alice's bedroom. On the frosty crystal desk sat a white designer handbag. Suddenly, a blood-red slug slowly crawled out from within. Chapter 31, Chapter 31, Vilgax's Trials. The vast and silent universe stretched endlessly, cold and lifeless, like a beast lurking in the dark, waiting to devour everything. Countless stars shimmered faintly, as if the cosmos itself were breathing alive and eternal. Beyond Earth's orbit, a massive, fully armed battleship hovered quietly above the blue planet. Inside, a brutal test was underway. Hundreds of spider-like robots swarmed across the arena, their eyes glowing crimson. Black gun barrels extended from beneath their heads, all aimed at the two figures standing at the center. ZZZZT. Blazing red lasers burst from the robots' muzzles, scorching through the air with terrifying heat as they streaked toward their targets. At the arena's core, a sand-colored crab-like alien gave a cold snort and swung its thick claws, effortlessly deflecting several beams. Then, opening its claws wide, it fired a powerful laser between them. The beam's energy was immense. Within moments, the surrounding spider robots exploded into fragments, scattering across the ground. And %UNAT. Across from it, a black and purple alien shouted something unintelligible in a strange language, clearly unimpressed by the spider drones. Weapons covered every inch of his body, arms, legs, chest. He was armed to the teeth, a true weapon fanatic. Raising his pistol, he dashed into the midst of the robots. Spinning rapidly, he pulled the trigger again and again, unleashing a torrent of bullets that shredded enemies at astonishing speed. Rat-a-tat-tat. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed behind them, swallowing the light. A colossal robot emerged, towering 5 or 6 stories high. Its crimson eyes glowed menacingly, and its claws gleamed with a sharp metallic chill. It crouched on all fours like a giant spider, its presence heavy and oppressive. Just as the crab monster prepared to attack, a figure dressed in black shot forward on a hoverboard, streaking through the air. The giant robot's eyes flared. Two beams of crimson light gathered and shot forth like roaring dragons, tearing through the air toward the newcomer. Boom! A deafening explosion shook the arena. The searing lasers struck the black-clad figure dead on, erupting in a blinding flash and a cloud of smoke. Dead already? The crab monster sneered, his gaze full of disdain. Trying to compete with him? Once they reached Earth, he'd make sure to get rid of these rivals first. Whoosh! The next instant, the black-clad figure burst out of the smoke, cutting through the air on his hoverboard with unshaken resolve. He clenched his fist, drove it straight through the giant robot's chest, then landed lightly on the ground in one smooth motion. The colossal robot froze, completely still. A moment later, a blazing light erupted from its chest. The explosion consumed it instantly, leaving nothing but twisted metal and fire. Not bad, the crab monster clicked his claws. At number U and at number %, the other alien muttered again, words still indecipherable. After dispatching the enemy, the black-clad figure turned toward a nearby screen. On the bright display sat an alien resembling an octopus, tentacles hanging from its mouth, its twisted face radiating menace and cruelty. "Did you pass the assessment?" the black-clad figure asked slowly, his true features hidden behind the mask. "All three of you have passed," Vilgax said, his eyes narrowing slightly as a cold gleam flashed within them. "Then we'll head to Earth immediately to help you reclaim the Omnitrix," Crab replied respectfully, placing one claw over his chest. "Hold on," Vilgax said hoarsely. "Any further instructions?" the cloaked figure asked, puzzled. Vilgax chuckled. "One warrior remains untested. I wish to see his strength." "Another?" The cloaked figure's tone darkened. "What? Afraid someone might outshine you? Seize the Omnitrix first, and claim all the bounty." Crab's mechanical voice echoed, its tone flat yet dripping with sarcasm. "Humph, watch your tone, or you'll regret it." The cloaked figure snorted coldly, showing no regard for his opponent. Just as the crab alien was about to retort, Vilgax cut him off. "Shut up, both of you." Vilgax's forehead veins bulged, his tentacles twitching. "I don't care how you do it, whoever retrieves the Omnitrix for me gets the bounty. Otherwise, none of you escape. If you fail the mission, you're useless to me. If you doubt me, try it. Anyone who dares provoke Vilgax will find no refuge in this entire universe." Vilgax's terrifying roar echoed through every corner of the ship. "Yes, yes." Crab bowed his head, not daring to defy. Just then, the hatch above opened, and a tall, slender figure emerged slowly. The black-clad figure gripped his hoverboard tightly, his gaze fixed intently upward. The newcomer wore black armor etched with molten, lava-like crimson patterns. Every movement radiated a faint aura of death, like a prehistoric beast lying in wait, ready to strike its prey at any moment. With a thunderous boom, fiery red flames erupted from the figure's body, releasing an overwhelming surge of power. In an instant, he leapt forward and crashed down onto the arena floor. "Black Fire, begin your performance," Vilgax spoke slowly. Soon, 3 colossal robots entered the arena, encircling Black Fire. Chapter 32, Chapter 32, Flame Blade Slash. The massive arena was strewn with the wreckage of countless robots. The scorched ground still radiated heat, as if a fierce battle had just ended. The man in black, 6'6", and Crab stood on their hoverboards, rising high above the arena as they looked down below. "Didn't expect there to be a 4th bounty hunter. Wonder how strong he is," the man in black muttered. Crab and 6'6" fixed their eyes on the figure below. They could clearly feel the overwhelming aura radiating from Black Fire, terrifying and immense, not a bit weaker than their own. Begin the battle! Vilgax barked. At his command, the three massive robots moved first. One of them suddenly raised its claw, sharp as a blade, cutting through the air with a violent gust as it struck down toward Blackfire. SSSHH! A crimson flash sliced through the air. The robot's arm was severed instantly, crashing to the ground with a heavy thud. Blackfire stood covered in armor etched with fiery patterns, a blazing scimitar forming in his hand. Heat radiated from the blade, warping the air around him. Such speed, the man in black murmured from above, his eyes narrowing. The instant the giant robot attacked, Blackfire had summoned his flame blade and struck back swift, ruthless, precise. The blow came and went in the blink of an eye. The robot didn't react. It couldn't feel pain, only obey orders. SSSHH! Its crimson eyes lit up, firing blood-red laser beams that streaked through the air like deadly serpents aimed straight at Blackfire. He vanished in a blur of motion, reappearing behind the robot. Too slow, he rasped. He raised his blazing blade and sliced through both of the robot's legs in one clean motion. Losing its balance, the machine crashed to the ground with a deafening clang. Before it could fully collapse, Blackfire leapt into the air, reversed his grip, and drove the flaming scimitar straight through its head. Boom! A thunderous explosion erupted. Flames burst out, scattering metal fragments across the arena like rain. Blackfire landed lightly, a cold snort escaping him. Then a surge of danger flared behind him. Without thinking, he blurred away, leaving only a black streak in the air. Boom! In the spot where he had stood, several thick laser beams struck, gouging a massive, bottomless crater into the ground. Interesting, he said evenly. Turning, Blackfire faced the two remaining robots. One raised its claw and fired a scorching beam of light. Blackfire slashed forward, cutting the beam apart and sending the split energy crashing harmlessly behind him. This ends now. He held the flaming scimitar horizontally before his chest and began a low chant. With a sharp whoosh, the flames surged higher, the blade blazing with immense power and blinding light. The two robots didn't wait for him to finish. Their eyes flared, unleashing thick crimson beams in unison, hurling them toward him. Four massive lasers converged, filling the air with red light. Slash! Blackfire shouted, swinging his flaming scimitar with full force. A blazing arc erupted from the blade, radiating a heat so fierce it made the air tremble. Chapter 33, Found You. Sizzle! The razor-sharp, searing blade of flame instantly sliced through the four laser beams, shattering them into a sky-filling red light that dissipated helplessly into the air. Without losing momentum, it then decapitated two colossal robots in one fell swoop. Their massive bodies stiffened before crashing down with a thunderous roar, triggering violent explosions that sent flames flying everywhere. Blackfire stood imposing at the arena's center, radiating a fierce aura as he basked in the blazing light. At that moment, the overhead screen lit up again, revealing Vilgax's face. Impressive, truly impressive. With you here, I'm certain we can reclaim the Omnitrix. Appreciation flashed in Vilgax's eyes, he was thoroughly satisfied with Blackfire's performance. Blackfire gave a slight nod in response. All four of you are accepted. Whoever retrieves the Omnitrix first and delivers it to me will claim the bounty. Vilgax narrowed his eyes slightly, his tone shifting. But if anyone dares to keep it for themselves, don't blame me for being ruthless. Understood. The group bowed in unison. Soon, the Universe spacecraft's hatch opened, launching four metallic spheres directly toward Earth. A desolate silver mine region. This location lay in the wilderness, utterly uninhabited. Surrounding it were abandoned excavation machinery and numerous dilapidated houses, covered in thick layers of dust and tangled spider webs. The vast expanse was desolate and weathered, rarely visited by humans. Countless mining tunnels crisscrossed the mountains in a chaotic pattern. At this moment, an old, beat-up car sat parked here. Grandpa Max held a wrench, bent over and working diligently to fix the rust bucket's malfunction. Grandpa, let me do it. I can fix this rust bucket right away if I transform into grey matter, Lucian said, reaching to grab the wrench from Grandpa Max. No need. This minor issue will be fixed in no time. Grandpa paused, then continued, Lucian. I actually think it's necessary to reduce the frequency of your transformations. With such a powerful weapon, who knows what trouble it might attract. Lucian nodded and chuckled softly. Don't worry, Grandpa. I know my limits. Good. By the way, go check on Ben and the others. Don't let them get into trouble. Grandpa Max, his hair streaked with grey, said with a smile. Lucian nodded and began searching for Ben's figure, only to find him and Gwen walking toward a massive warehouse. For some reason, Lucian felt an ominous foreboding. He immediately quickened his pace to follow, soon entering the warehouse. In the dimly lit warehouse, Gwen held her phone, scrolling through information about the location. The map shows that this place is called Slaterville Station. After silver was discovered here in 1857, it thrived for a while. Once the mines were depleted, it was abandoned. Gwen stared intently at her phone. Ben smirked, teasing, why does every sentence out of your mouth sound like you're reading from a textbook? What do you know, moron? This is called diligently studying materials, unlike you who only thinks about playing all day, Gwen snorted lightly. Ben, Gwen, we should head back. Lucian caught up from behind, scanning the gloomy surroundings. It's pitch black in here. Who knows what lurks in the dark? Relax. Ben propped his hands behind his head, grinning. With you here, cuz, even the most powerful alien weirdo in the entire universe wouldn't stand a chance. Lucian shook his head slightly. No, at least not yet. His current strength alone wasn't enough to be invincible across the universe. It wasn't that he wasn't strong, it was that the vast universe held far too many terrifying monsters. And it wasn't just this universe, there were countless parallel worlds. At that moment, Ben walked over to a seesaw, sat down directly, and looked utterly content. Cuz, come play too, he teased with a grin. Sure. Lucian smiled. It had been ages since he'd played on one. Suddenly, the sound of a rope snapping echoed from above. Lucian immediately looked up, his gaze sharpening. A massive rat had climbed onto one of the ropes. Due to age, the rope was brittle as paper. Under the rat's weight, it snapped cleanly, leaving only half hanging. Rib. The next second, the rope snapped clean in two. A massive iron barrel crashed down, hurtling straight toward the seesaw below and Ben Tennyson sitting on it. Ah! The sudden scene turned Gwen's face ashen, freezing her in place. Lucian lunged forward in a single stride, simultaneously raising his watch and slamming it down, unleashing a burst of eerie green light. Boom! In the next instant, the massive iron barrel was lifted mid-air by 4 crimson arms. 4 arms roared furiously, flinging it violently against the hard stone wall, sending sparks flying. Ben stood frozen, staring blankly at the towering figure before him. Ben, are you hurt? 4 arms turned to him. Just as Ben was about to speak, the ground beneath his feet suddenly began to violently tremble. Boom! A sand-colored crab burst from the earth, its legs spinning rapidly. Massive in size, it bore 2 razor-sharp claws and golden eyes that radiated a terrifying killing intent. Lowering its head to examine the radar in its grasp, it spoke coldly, "Found you, Omnitrix." Chapter 34, Chapter 34, 4 Arms vs. Crab. What a huge crab! Ben couldn't help but exclaim. Gwen, quick as a flash, grabbed Ben off the seesaw and pulled him behind 4 arms. Crab ignored them both, staring straight at the towering 4 arms and saying coldly, "Hand over the Omnitrix, and I'll let you die quickly. Come and get it if you dare." 4 arms snorted, clenching his fists until his knuckles cracked. "Looks like you've chosen the hard way." Crab raised its claw and fired a crimson laser straight at them. Four Arms grabbed the two behind him, planting his feet before launching himself upward with astonishing power. In an instant, he dodged the blast and leapt out of the warehouse. "This place is too dangerous. The whole thing could collapse any second. Get as far away as you can." He set the two down, then turned and charged back inside. Whoosh! The next instant, Crab's massive body was hurled out violently, skidding across the ground and gouging out a deep trench. It struggled to its feet, its dirt-stained shell cracked and grimy, eyes wide with disbelief. Before Crab could recover, Four Arms burst out of the dark warehouse in a single stride, his presence overwhelming like a fortress standing alone against an army. At once, the two clashed again. Watching the one-sided fight, Ben and Gwen stood frozen in awe. Their cuz was way too strong. Four powerful fists swung through the air, each strike booming like thunder. Blow after blow rained down until Crab could no longer fight back, retreating step by step. "You're asking for death." Crab lunged forward, its sharp claws snapping toward Four Arms, intent on tearing him apart. Four Arms caught the claws in both hands, then unleashed a furious barrage with his remaining fists. His punches came like a storm, slamming into Crab's armored body again and again. "So freaking cool. Four Arms is totally my idol." Ben shouted in awe. "If only I could transform into him someday." Little did he know, that wish might soon come true. "Cuz is amazing. That ugly Crab doesn't even stand a chance," Gwen said excitedly, her eyes locked on the battle ahead. The ground trembled as dust and debris filled the air. Under the relentless assault, Crab's hard shell began to dent and cave in, the marks clear evidence of Four Arms' crushing power. "Didn't think you'd be this tough, you hunk of metal," Four Arms said slowly as he strode toward Crab. If it were any ordinary metal, it would have been reduced to scrap by now. But this crab-like robot was still standing. It was clearly no ordinary opponent. "Don't get too full of yourself, Tetramands," Crab hissed, clacking its claws. "Reckless, inferior creatures like your kind deserve nothing but extinction." With that, it thrust both claws forward, firing scorching beams of light at blinding speed. Four Arms let out a roar, his muscles tensing as he swung both massive arms. The beams shattered instantly, fading into the air. Crab leapt high, its four sharp legs spinning like a deadly drill. It ripped into the ground, disappearing beneath the surface. The entire silver mine district began to shake violently. Old buildings collapsed one after another, dust clouds rising as wooden debris scattered everywhere. Four Arms' expression hardened as he stared at the ground, trying to pinpoint Crab's position. But the chaos was too loud. Falling structures and grinding metal drowned out everything. Boom! Suddenly, a sharp claw burst from underground, clamping down tightly on Four Arms' foot. Agonizing pain shot through him, like a giant pair of scissors crushing his leg. Four Arms roared in anger, raising one of his massive fists and slamming it down hard. With a resounding crack, the claw dented deeply before snapping back underground like lightning. "Coward! If you've got the guts, come out." Four Arms clenched his fists, the sound of cracking knuckles echoing through the air. Zzzzzzzzzzz. Suddenly, a barrage of crimson lasers burst from underground, carrying violent kinetic energy that instantly engulfed Four Arms. A series of deafening explosions erupted, flooding the area with blinding flames. Waves of scorching heat rolled outward, mixed with sand and debris, sweeping across the battlefield in all directions. "Cuz!" Ben shouted, staring anxiously at the chaos ahead. Gwen reacted quickly, conjuring a transparent bubble that enveloped both of them just in time to shield them from the heat and smoke. "Cuz is so strong, he'll be fine," Gwen murmured softly, though worry flickered in her eyes. Just then, a familiar voice called from behind. "Ben, Gwen. What happened over there?" "And Where's Lucian? Grandpa Max came running up, panting heavily. He had been fixing the rust bucket when the sudden blast echoed from the direction Lucian had gone. Alarmed, he dropped everything and rushed straight toward the noise. Grandpa, this big crab thing showed up. It tried to grab Cuz's watch. Gwen quickly explained what had happened. Grandpa Max's expression grew serious, deep lines of thought furrowing his brow. As the smoke and dust slowly cleared, the scene of the battlefield came into view. Four Arms stood tall and unshaken, his massive frame radiating power like an unyielding war god amid the devastation. His blood-red skin was slightly charred, yet unbroken proof of his sheer resilience and strength. Stab! A sharp crab claw suddenly shot out from the ground, lunging straight for his leg. "Cuz, watch out!" Ben yelled. Snap! With a sharp crack, Four Arms caught the claw in his grip. Roaring furiously, he summoned every ounce of his strength and wrenched the creature clean out of the earth. Long ago, a hero uprooted a tree. Today, Four Arms tore a crab from the ground. Boom! 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 Gripping the creature tightly, Four Arms swung it like a sledgehammer, slamming it hard against the ground again and again. Sparks and dust flew in every direction with each crushing impact, the sounds like rolling thunder. The three watching from afar stood frozen in disbelief, mouths hanging open. Four Arms is insane. That crab's getting wrecked. Ben blurted out, eyes wide. So rough, but I kinda like it, Gwen said, her cheeks reddening slightly as admiration shone in her eyes. Lucian's combat instincts are incredible. He really does have the Tennyson blood, Grandpa Max said with a proud nod. Grandpa, does that mean everyone in the Tennyson family is strong like that? Ben asked, scratching his head in confusion. Grandpa Max smiled but said nothing more, his gaze fixed on the battlefield. Crab's body was battered and dented, its yellow-brown shell covered in deep gouges and cracks from the relentless assault. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, the Omnitrix emblem on Four Arms' chest began to flash. This stupid watch! He grabbed Crab by the claw and swung it with all his might, hurling it into a nearby building. The old structure collapsed instantly, wood and beams crashing down in a cloud of dust, burying Crab completely beneath the wreckage. Its fate unknown. Chapter 35, 6-6. Boom! A blinding red light burst from Four Arms, reverting Lucian to his human form. Grandpa, we have to get out of here. Lucian glanced back toward Crab before sprinting their way. Awesome, Cuz. You're amazing. Ben jumped up excitedly. Yeah, you just saved this idiot's life, Gwen huffed. All right, that's enough. We need to move, now. Who knows if that crab's still alive? Without wasting a second, Grandpa Max led them all back into the rust bucket and sped off into the distance. The rust bucket raced down the desert highway like a wild stallion, moving faster and faster. Grandpa Max gripped the steering wheel tightly, the accelerator nearly pressed to the floor. Amid the constant roar of the engine, Ben scratched his head. Grandpa, why are you driving so fast? That crab got smashed into scrap metal by Cuz. There's no way it's catching up. Grandpa's expression grew serious. He shook his head. No. I'm worried about other pursuers. This watch draws too much attention. It wouldn't surprise me if more big bad guys came after it. You're right, Grandpa. Lucian looked down at the watch on his wrist. The screen glowed red. It was completely drained. He couldn't transform again yet. The Omnitrix needed time to recharge. Let's hope nothing weird shows up before my Cuz's cool watch is done charging, Gwen muttered anxiously. No sooner had she finished speaking than a heavy thud struck the roof of the rust bucket, as if something had landed on it. Lucian immediately looked up, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Oh no, don't tell me it's that crab again. Ben's eyes went wide with panic. He could still picture the terrifying creature clearly, those razor-sharp claws and deadly red lasers. If 4 arms hadn't been so strong, they wouldn't have made it out alive. But now, with Lucian's watch still recharging, he couldn't transform into any powerful alien hero. They had no one to stop it. Sensing danger, Gwen sprang from her seat, raised her hand toward the roof, and began murmuring a spell, ready to strike. Sparks crackled. A piercing metallic screech rang out as a red energy saw tore through the roof, slicing open a jagged gap. 2 black claws thrust through, ripping the hole wider until a grotesque face came into view. A dark helmet lined with purple stripes. A lean, wiry frame. Encased in black and purple armor packed with weapons, radiating a suffocating killing intent. "What is that thing?" Ben shouted, panic rising. Compared to the crab, this creature didn't seem any weaker. 6-6. Lucian recognized it instantly. A notorious bounty hunter armed with a deadly array of guns and hidden weapons. One careless move in battle could mean instant death. UN % at and number. 6-6 glanced around, quickly spotting the Omnitrix on Lucian's wrist. It lunged forward, claws reaching for it. Lucian darted aside, narrowly dodging its grasp. He looked down at the red-screened Omnitrix and gritted his teeth. "Gwen, hit him with water magic and blast him out of here." "Got it." Gwen smirked, pointing upward. "Sorry, no alien hitchhikers allowed." Whoosh! A powerful jet of water burst from her fingertip, surging with violent energy. It struck 6-6 head-on, launching him off the roof and sending him tumbling across the highway ahead. "Nice work, Gwen." Grandpa Max chuckled, floored the accelerator, and plowed straight through 6-6's body, speeding off into the distance once more. But after just a short distance, the rust bucket began jolting violently. Its undercarriage felt oddly light, and the vehicle started swerving out of control. Grandpa Max froze for a moment, then slowly pulled the car over to the roadside. Everyone got out to inspect and discovered that the rust bucket's tire had burst cleanly sliced open, as if by a sharp blade. Just then, 6-6 flew toward them from not far away, a gleaming lightsaber now in its hand. It must have been him who sliced the tire. "Let's get out of here." Without hesitation, Grandpa led the group running into a nearby mine tunnel. 6-6 cursed under its breath. Flames burst from the thrusters on its back armor, generating fierce propulsion as it rocketed forward in hot pursuit. The gloomy tunnel was thick with the scent of earth, desolate, ancient, and chillingly silent. They sprinted at full speed, not daring to slow for even a moment. The air echoed only with their ragged breathing and the frantic rhythm of their footsteps. Soon, a piercing white light appeared at the tunnel's far end. After a brief hesitation, they dashed toward it. As sunlight struck their eyes, a sharp pain stung them. Lucian forced his eyes open, finally making out the sight ahead. A massive mining pit stretched before them, bottomless and pitch black, terrifying like a demon waiting to devour anything that fell within. A thick rope spanned the chasm, suspending a small iron cart midway across, likely used by miners to transport ore, providing a narrow path to the other side. So high! Standing at the edge, Ben looked down into the endless abyss and swallowed hard. Golden sunlight poured from above, only to be consumed by the pit's darkness, a clear sign of its incredible depth. If someone fell, they'd never make it out. Whoosh! Suddenly, the roar of an engine echoed from the tunnel behind them, deafening and menacing. Trouble! That guy is catching up! A sharp glint flashed in Lucian's eyes as he looked up at the iron cart. "Grandpa, take Ben and the others up there. Get to the other side of the mine." "And what about you, Lucian?" Grandpa raised an eyebrow. Beep! The Omnitrix emitted a familiar chime as its red screen flickered and turned bright green, glowing brilliantly. Lucian's lips curved into a faint smile. "I'm staying behind to deal with those ugly creatures. If you cut the grass, you'd better pull out the roots." "'Cause, I'll stay and help you." Gwen's eyes shone with determination. "My magic's way stronger now. I even drove that monster back earlier." Me too. Ben glanced around, grabbed a rusty iron rod, and said, I'm staying too. It's just another alien freak, watch me knock him out. Grandpa Max hesitated for a moment, 1,000 thoughts crossing his mind before he finally let out a weary smile. In that case, we'll all stay and help Lucian fight the enemy. A surge of battle spirit rose within Grandpa Max. It had been a long time since he'd felt this alive. Whoosh! A slender figure burst from the tunnel entrance, trailed by blazing flames. And %UN number at 66 hovered in midair, glaring down at them like a predator. Boom! The ground trembled violently as a rust-colored crab erupted from below, its body scarred and dented. Now let's see where you can run. Crab's eyes burned with fury as it raised its sharp claws, aiming straight for them. Lucian snorted coldly, switched heroes in an instant, and slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix. Chapter 36, Chapter 36, The Arrogant Crab. Thud. A ghostly green light flashed, revealing a towering crystal figure entirely emerald green, like a finely sculpted work of art standing tall before the group. It's Diamond Head! Ben shouted excitedly. Besides 4 arms, this was his favorite alien hero. Crab eyed Diamond Head with contempt. Petrosapien, your power is even weaker than a Tetramands. I suggest you hand over the Omnitrix willingly. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rough. My power may be a bit lower than 4 arms, but you should already know what I'm capable of, Diamond Head said evenly, a faint chill flickering in his eyes. So what? You just turn your body into a weapon. My steel armor isn't afraid of your crystal spikes. You'll never pierce my defense. Crab's tone brimmed with confidence, utterly dismissing Diamond Head as a threat. Then let's find out. Diamond Head raised his arm, transforming it into a cluster of gleaming spikes. The razor-sharp crystals shimmered with a faint green light as he aimed them straight at Crab. UN % and at. Above them, 66 shouted something unintelligible, lifting his blaster and taking aim at Diamond Head, ready to fire. Hold on, Crab said coldly, raising a claw. I want to see how this guy plans to break through my defense. It had fought countless battles, even against Petrosapiens before. Their attacks had always been useless, barely sparking against its armor. Holy crap, did that crab get beaten stupid by 4 arms? It's just standing there letting Diamond Head attack. Ben gawked, eyes wide. Gwen propped her chin thoughtfully. Maybe, it's trying to break Diamond Head's confidence first. That way, it won't have to waste much energy finishing the fight. Don't get it, Ben muttered, shrugging. To him, fighting was simple, you just went in swinging. Who needed tactics? Petrosapien, your species was wiped out long ago because you were too weak, Crab sneered, clicking its claws. Go ahead and attack. I'll let you strike once, see if you can scratch my impenetrable armor. Fine, then I won't hold back, Diamond Head said with a cold smile. It seemed this overconfident crab still hadn't realized its situation. It thought it was facing a normal Petrosapien. Come on then. Crab said boldly, pounding its chest. Diamond Head lifted his arm, which reshaped into a forest of sharp, glittering spikes. Like a torrential storm, they fired toward Crab. Clang! 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 The metallic clatter echoed as countless crystal spikes pierced Crab's body in an instant, riddling it with holes like a giant metal porcupine. Its earth-colored steel hide, once thought indestructible, crumbled beneath the hardened crystal spikes, splitting apart like soft tofu. Crab stared in disbelief at the shards embedded in its chest. This can't be. Since when did the Petrosapiens become this strong? By all logic, the crystal spikes from a Petrosapien should have shattered on impact against its armor. But these crystals didn't break, they cut through effortlessly. Their hardness far exceeded what it had ever seen before. Diamond Head snorted coldly. Of course, the arrogant crab had no idea his crystal body had been system-enhanced, its hardness increased by 25% beyond its original strength. Percent at end yuan at, percent at number yuan yuan. 66, seeing the crab riddled with spikes, exploded with rage. He dove beside crab and started firing wildly, clearly venting his fury at its arrogance. Watching the chaotic scene, Diamond Head couldn't help but laugh. Enough talk, let's take him down together. Crab, growing increasingly irritated, turned all its fury toward Diamond Head. 66 cursed under his breath, raised his blaster, and aimed it at Diamond Head. Pulling the crystal spikes from his chest, Crab revealed a pitted, charred surface full of blackened holes. Despite the damaged components and exposed wiring, it was still capable of fighting. You've angered me, Petrosapien. Crab raised its claws, firing a searing scarlet laser between them. The scorching beam tore through the air, racing straight toward Diamond Head. Diamond Head slammed a palm into the ground, summoning a thick crystal barrier that rose up instantly, blocking the laser with a brilliant flash. With a burst of red flame, 66 ignited his jetpack, rocketing high into the air. Drawing his twin pistols, he squeezed the triggers. Whoosh! 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 A storm of blood-red energy bullets rained down, filling the sky and bombarding the ground where Diamond Head stood. Diamond Head swept his hand outward, forming a massive crystal slope that shimmered with green light, covering himself completely. Boom! 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 Deafening explosions rocked the area. The violent red energy blasts unleashed immense force, shaking the ground and carving deep craters into it. Grandpa Max quickly led Ben and Gwen out of the danger zone. "Cuz won't be hurt, right?" Gwen asked, glancing back at the smoke-choked battlefield where nothing could be seen. "Relax," Ben said with a confident grin. Diamond Head's body's built different. This kind of attack won't even scratch him. Grandpa nodded. Ben's right. That level of damage can't hurt Lucian. But those explosions are too strong for us to handle. Once this barrage ends, we'll go back and support him. All right then, Gwen murmured, lowering her gaze. After some time, 66 stopped firing, his ammo clearly spent. The thick white smoke began to fade, slowly revealing the scene inside. The charred battlefield was riddled with craters and fractures like a shattered web. Standing tall amid the destruction, Diamond Head looked like an unbreakable legend, his crystal body gleaming faintly through the haze. The crystal barrier around him, however, was covered in cracks, trembling under its own weight but still intact. If not for the Omnitrix's enhancements, it would have shattered long ago. In the original design, Petrosapien crystals were notoriously brittle. One bombardment like that and they'd usually collapse. Dismissing the barrier, Diamond Head fixed his golden eyes on the two enemies ahead, his gaze sharp with battle intent. He lifted his arm, reshaping it into a barrage of crystal blades that erupted outward in a thunderous volley, streaking straight toward 66. Percent at number percent at. 66 didn't dare take the hit head-on. He dodged sharply aside, then dove down toward Diamond Head at full speed. Raising the cannon on his wrist, he fired several red missiles that screamed through the air, followed closely by a swipe of his left hand summoning a crimson light blade that lunged after the missiles like a viper. Diamond Head countered immediately, launching a hail of crystal spears that intercepted the missiles midair. They exploded prematurely in a burst of smoke and fire, filling the air with thick black clouds. SSSHH. In the next instant, 66 burst through the smoke, thrusting his crimson blade forward. In a flash of red light, it slashed straight toward Diamond Head's throat. Chapter 37, Chapter 37, Tetrax Shard. Facing the charging 66, Diamond Head clenched his fist in midair, forming a gleaming crystal halberd. Gripping it tightly with both hands, he swung it down with tremendous force, slashing straight at 66. Clang! The halberd struck the crimson light blade with perfect precision, shattering it instantly. The impact unleashed a powerful shockwave that sent 66 flying backward like a severed kite, slamming hard into a stone wall and leaving it covered in fractures. With his opponent thrown off, Diamond Head morphed both arms into deadly, conical spikes and lunged forward, ready to finish the fight. Suddenly, two massive crab claws burst from the ground beneath him, clamping tightly around his legs. "You again, you overgrown crab," Diamond Head growled, his eyes flashing with sharp light before a sly grin spread across his face. "You just signed your own death warrant." He slammed his crystal palm down against the ground. Boom! The earth rumbled violently as massive crystal peaks erupted upward, their surfaces lined with countless razor-sharp spikes. They rose in an instant, glimmering coldly under the light. "Let go of me!" Crab shouted, his body caught on the spikes, thrashing in vain to break free. "You're the first fool who thought attacking Diamond Head underground was a good idea," Diamond Head said, shaking his head. With a sweep of his arm, he conjured a magnificent crystal longsword. It shimmered like a royal blade, radiating majesty and power. "Since you love the underground so much, I'll send you straight to it." Gathering his strength, Diamond Head hurled the sword forward with all his might. The crystalline weapon roared through the air like a raging dragon, speeding straight toward Crab. Boom! A massive cannonball suddenly struck the airborne crystal sword head-on. Though Diamond Head's crystal couldn't be destroyed, the sheer impact veered the sword off its course. SSSHH! The gleaming blade stabbed into the rock right beside Crab's head, missing by inches. The alien's eyes widened in terror, his limbs trembling uncontrollably. Even as a high-intelligence mechanical being, Crab still feared death. Flames erupted from 6-6's jetpack as he shot forward, grabbing Crab and pulling him free from the spikes with all his strength. UN% at and asterisk. 6-6 barked furiously from atop the crystal ridge. Crab nodded, murderous intent burning in his eyes. "All right. Let's take him down together. The bounty, we split it evenly." Knowing they couldn't win alone, the two aliens joined forces. The new wielder of the Omnitrix had proven far stronger than either of them expected. Better to cooperate than die by his hand, at least then, there was still a chance to survive. "Even two ants together can't bring down an elephant," Diamond Head said coolly. "Damn it!" 6-6 cursed, leaping into the air and lunging straight at Diamond Head. Crab's mechanical legs spun rapidly as he jumped down from the crystal ridge, his sharp claws slashing through the air as he charged forward. Whoosh! Suddenly, a green aqua arrow cut through the air and struck Crab right on the head. Clang! Water burst from the corner of Crab's eye, splattering and falling to the ground. He froze for a moment, then glared viciously at Gwen in the distance. "You wretched human! How dare you attack me? Are you looking to die? My aqua arrow didn't even work? This guy's armor is insane!" Gwen gasped, quickly backing away and running in the opposite direction. Crab sprinted after her on his swift mechanical legs, relentless and ferocious. "I think the one looking to die is you," a deep voice boomed from behind. Crab's body stiffened as he slowly turned around. Boom! Before he could react, Diamond Head clenched his fist. It expanded with a rush of energy, turning into a massive crystal fist that sent Crab flying into a distant mine. Gwen looked up at the towering figure before her, her eyes filled with awe and admiration. "Cuz, you're amazing! Thanks for saving me again." Diamond Head waved it off, then threw a quick punch behind him, sending the ambushing 6-6 crashing away. At that moment, Ben came running over, gripping an iron rod and catching the scene just in time. "Oh, awesome! Cuz just wrecked those alien creeps again." "That was epic," he shouted excitedly. Grandpa Max shook his head with a wry smile. "Looks like Lucian doesn't need our help at all. He can take down both monsters by himself." In his experience, Petrosapiens were never this strong. Lucian's performance defied all expectations. Grandpa Max couldn't make sense of it. Eventually, he stopped trying. Only investigation and research could unravel this mystery. Guesswork alone wouldn't get him anywhere. Phew. At that moment, the heavily injured 6-6 shot up into the sky, glaring down at Diamond Head below. It shouted something in an alien tongue, neither anger nor fear, but rather, contempt and mockery. Does it have something to rely on? Diamond Head frowned, uncertainty flashing across his face. Just as he thought that, several poison smoke bombs rolled to his feet. Hiss! Thick white smoke erupted, quickly engulfing Diamond Head. A wave of dizziness hit him hard. He clutched his head and dropped to one knee, struggling to stay conscious. "Cuz! Lucian!" The three nearby shouted, trying to rush into the dense smoke. Whoosh! In the next instant, a black-clad figure on a hoverboard shot into the smoke like lightning. Effortlessly, he grabbed Diamond Head and began carrying him toward the other side of the mine. Yuan at percent, the 6-6 monster above cursed furiously, seemingly displeased that the black-clad figure had snatched his bounty. The black-clad figure snorted coldly, raising his palm to unleash a blue beam that instantly knocked the 6-6 monster down, sending it plummeting straight into the abyss-like mine shaft. After this, the figure swept a glance at Ben and the others before hoisting the semi-conscious Diamond Head and vanishing into the gloomy mine passage. "I'll chase after him, he can't harm Lucian," Grandpa declared, sprinting forward with speed unbecoming of an elderly man. Ben and Gwen exchanged a glance before hurrying after him. On the other side of the mine tunnel, the surroundings were littered with abandoned machinery, piles of plastic lunch boxes and empty bottles, and a desolate factory building. Standing on his hoverboard, the man in black casually tossed Diamond Head onto the ground, where he landed with a dull thud. Gritting his teeth against the heavy pressure in his mind, Diamond Head rose to his feet. His gaze sharpened when he saw the figure before him. He recognized this man. According to the original storyline, he should be a Petrosapien named Tetrax Shard. Out of billions of Earth people on this planet, they chose you, you little brat. The black-clad figure stowed his hoverboard, clutching it tightly in his hand. "So what if I was chosen?" Diamond Head snorted coldly. "Just now, I single-handedly defeated 6-6 and Crab. Isn't that proof enough of my strength?" "What are you talking about? There was only one 6-6 just now." The black-clad figure seemed surprised, having not noticed Crab's presence. No wonder Crab had long been blasted into the mountains by Diamond Head and was nowhere to be seen. "You didn't come here just to lecture me, did you?" Diamond Head probed indirectly. "Of course not. I'm here to take you back and retrieve the powerful Omnitrix. It doesn't belong to you." "Then why did it choose me?" Diamond Head countered. "That has to do with its inventor. I can't elaborate further." "Just come back with me quietly," the man in black said slowly. "I'm not going anywhere." Diamond Head shook his head. "That's not up to you. Why should I listen to you?" The cloaked figure stepped before Diamond Head, pointing at his chest and enunciating each word. "Because I am a noble warrior, while you are nothing but a useless moron." "Useless?" Diamond Head bristled at the insult. "Once we deal with 6-6, you're welcome to settle this. Who wins isn't decided yet." As they spoke, Diamond Head gradually regained his composure, the drowsiness lifting. "What the hell did you just throw?" "That stuff is pure poison," he couldn't help but complain. The cloaked figure replied coolly, "It was an advanced alien technology capable of rendering most silicon-based life forms unconscious. You're lucky you didn't pass out immediately." "Does that include you?" Diamond Head grinned. "What?" The cloaked figure froze. "No need to hide it. You and I are aliens of the same species Petrosapien," Diamond Head said slowly. After a moment's thought, the black-clad figure removed his mask, revealing a face identical to Diamond Head's. "How did you know my identity?" "I shouldn't have given anything away," Tetrax Shard asked, puzzled. "You don't need to know that." Diamond Head shook his head. He certainly couldn't tell the other he was a transmigrator. Tetrax Shard's gaze grew grave. We must leave immediately. There's another mercenary here. Who? Blackfire, a mysterious figure, Tetrax Shard said somberly. He's formidable. Even I can't see through him. Just as Diamond Head was about to respond, a blood-red flame streaked across the sky. Chapter 38, The Enemy Strikes. Boom! A deafening roar erupted as the fiery red flame in the sky, carrying terrifying kinetic energy, crashed down onto the houses. The raging, scorching flames devoured the dilapidated wooden huts with frenzied intensity, instantly engulfing them in a vast inferno. Crackling and popping, rolling waves of searing heat surged forward. Tetrax Shard's gaze grew sharp as he stared at the blazing sea of fire ahead. Damn it! He's here! Who? Blackfire. The fourth bounty hunter assigned to this mission. Tetrax Shard stood upright, his posture tense and ready for combat. Tap tap. From within the Crimson Inferno emerged a tall, slender figure, radiating a terrifying aura as it slowly advanced toward them. Clad in black armor etched with molten, lava-like patterns, the figure strode calmly through the flames like a messenger from hell, emanating dread with every step. Ding triggered alien hacker mission. Defeat bounty hunter Blackfire to obtain a random alien DNA codex. Note: upon acquiring new genes, no cooldown is required. You may immediately transform into the new hero for combat. Recharging is only necessary afterward. A series of system prompts echoed in Lucian's mind. Hearing this, Diamond Head was already eager to strike, ready to take down the enemy before him. Hand over the Omnitrix, and I'll spare your lives. Blackfire's voice was hoarse, his tone carrying absolute authority. Arrogance comes at a price. If you want the Omnitrix, prove you have what it takes. Diamond Head raised his arm, morphing it into a dense crystal blade aimed straight at Blackfire. No, let me handle this. Tetrax Shard stepped in front of him. The Omnitrix is far too important to risk. With your current strength, you're no match for Blackfire. How will I know unless I try? Diamond Head snorted coldly. Don't be reckless. Tetrax Shard shook his head. He didn't believe an Earthling who had only just obtained the Omnitrix could fully control the power of a Petrosapien. Have you two finished talking? Blackfire's tone grew impatient as he turned his gaze toward Tetrax Shard. You traitor! How dare you switch sides in the middle of battle? Aren't you afraid of Vilgax's wrath? A true warrior fears no evil. Tetrax Shard launched himself forward on his hoverboard, charging straight at Blackfire. His hands transformed into clusters of sharp spikes that gleamed faint green under the light. As he darted through the air, countless crystal spikes shot forth in a relentless barrage. Blackfire clenched his hand in midair, summoning a flaming curved blade. With rapid, precise swings, he cleaved through every incoming crystal spike, shattering them into fragments that scattered across the ground. Impressive speed, Tetrax Shard muttered, astonished. Few could withstand his attacks so easily. Blackfire raised his palm, releasing a torrent of blazing fire. The surging heatwave roared toward Tetrax Shard. Reacting quickly, Tetrax Shard conjured a solid crystal wall in front of him. Thick and sturdy, it reflected a dazzling blue sheen in the firelight. Boom! In the next instant, the crystal barrier shattered violently, consumed by the roaring flames. What? This flame is that strong? Tetrax Shard's eyes widened in shock. Blackfire snorted. Too late for regrets. Once I deal with you and take that Earthling's Omnitrix, Vilgax's mission will be complete. As he spoke, the black armor covering his body ignited into blazing fire, transforming him into a demonic figure of pure flame. His presence radiated overwhelming power and menace. Wielding his flaming scimitar, he kicked off the ground like a human cannonball, lunging straight toward Tetrax Shard. Snapping back to focus, Tetrax Shard leapt down, retracting his hoverboard, and charged head-on toward the raging black fire without an ounce of fear. Not far away, Diamond Head's eyes flashed with a cold glint, ready to rush in and assist. Suddenly, a piercing whistle echoed from above. Diamond Head looked up to see 6-6 carrying the severely injured crab, scanning the battlefield below with a calculating gaze. "Think you can reap the rewards?" "Not a chance." Diamond Head raised his arm and unleashed a barrage of crystal spears, striking 6-6 and knocking him to the ground. "I hate this planet." Crab lay pinned beneath 6-6, his eyes filled with bitter hatred and unwillingness. "Damn it!" 6-6 scrambled up, yanking a pistol from his waist and firing a storm of bullets at Diamond Head. Bang! 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 Scarlet energy rounds burst from the barrel, roaring through the air with terrifying force. Diamond Head's eyes flashed. With both hands, he formed crystal shields in front of him, blocking the relentless barrage. Then he stomped hard, cracking the ground beneath his feet, and charged straight into battle against 6-6 and Crab. The two wounded aliens were no match for Diamond Head. The instant they clashed, they were completely overpowered. Crab lunged with his claw, trying to grab Diamond Head's arm. But with a single thought, Diamond Head detonated a surge of green crystal energy, shattering the claw and leaving it useless. "Damn you, Earthling! How can you be so strong, even as a Petrosapien?" Crab roared, fury blazing in his eyes. Diamond Head didn't answer. He clenched his crystal-covered fist and slammed it down with crushing force, intent on finishing his foe. 6-6's chest armor split open, revealing several red bombs. With a low growl, he grabbed them tightly and hurled them at Diamond Head. Seeing this, Diamond Head spread his arms, generating a solid crystal barrier around himself. Boom! A thunderous explosion erupted as the bombs detonated, flooding the area with blinding red light. The crystal shield was engulfed as the entire mine shook violently, rocks and debris scattering in every direction. 6-6's attacks came in endless waves, hidden weapons, blasters, and explosives, each more unpredictable than the last. Working together, he and Crab barely managed to withstand Diamond Head's might. But 6-6 knew all too well, once his weapons were spent, their doom was inevitable. "Percent at percent at!" 6-6 shouted toward Crab. Crab raised his claw and fired a laser at Diamond Head's position, then shook his head. "We can't run. If we let the Omnitrix get away, Vilgax will never forgive us." 6-6 cursed under his breath. Flames burst from his back as he rocketed into the air, raining down another round of attacks on the crystal barrier. A torrent of firepower poured from above, shrouding the area in smoke and dust. Crab, refusing to relent, lifted his remaining claw and fired continuous red beams, desperately trying to take Diamond Head down. Elsewhere, Tetrax Shard, clad in black armor, unleashed his full strength as he clashed head-on with Black Fire, who blazed like a living inferno. Chapter 39, Chapter 39, Diamond Head vs. Black Fire. The barren desert was engulfed in blazing fire. Blood-red light flickered through the inferno as waves of scorching heat swept across the land, distorting the very air. Boom! A crimson and a green figure clashed at blinding speed. From their collision erupted a powerful shockwave, shaking the earth as countless cracks spread out beneath their feet. Black Fire gripped his flaming scimitar, swinging it with ruthless precision. Every strike tore through the air, each one fierce enough to split the sky, aiming to cleave Tetrax Shard in two. Tetrax Shard's expression was grim. His hands morphed into razor-sharp spikes as he fought back with all his strength, engaging Black Fire in a brutal, head-on battle. Dodging a sweep of blazing heat, Tetrax Shard flicked his wrist, launching a barrage of crystal spikes that sliced through the scorching air, flying straight toward his opponent. Black Fire snorted coldly and spun his flame-wreathed blade into a crimson vortex, shredding the crystal spikes with a metallic screech. "I didn't expect to find such a powerful fighter among the Petrosapien," Black Fire said evenly. "Enough talk. Leave Earth now while you still can." Serving evil will only drag you into an endless abyss, Tetrax Shard replied sharply. He clenched his fist, transforming it into a meteor crystal hammer, and swung it hard at Blackfire. You're no match for me, Blackfire rasped. He raised his flaming curved blade, a terrifying aura erupting from him. The weapon pulsed with blood-red light, surging forward like death itself. Die! Blackfire roared, bringing the blade down in a savage arc. Facing the terrifying onslaught, Tetrax Shard didn't back down. One hand held a sharp crystal spike, the other his meteor crystal hammer, as he charged forward to meet Blackfire head-on. Slash! A crimson blade of energy cut through the air, and in an instant, Tetrax Shard's arms were severed, crashing to the ground with a heavy thud. Agonizing pain tore through his body. He had no time to think instinctively, he leapt back, narrowly avoiding another vicious slash. Boom! The blazing blade struck the ground, sending fire erupting in all directions. Deep gashes carved through the sand, glowing with crimson fire that crackled and hissed as it burned. Looking down at his shattered arms, Tetrax Shard's eyes narrowed. The wounds were seared by blood-red flames that devoured his very life force. Within seconds, cracks and blackened marks spread from the stumps. The heat of that infernal fire was unbearable. Gritting his teeth, Tetrax Shard roared and forced his power to surge. New crystal arms regrew, encasing the wounds and smothering the flames until his body returned to its full form. Whoosh! A violent gust swept in from behind, carrying blistering heat and a wave of killing intent. Tetrax Shard shifted slightly as a flaming crimson blade sliced past his chest, grazing his crystal skin. Blackfire, still holding the flaming scimitar, froze mid-air, his chest completely exposed. You let your guard down. Seizing the moment, Tetrax Shard clenched his crystal fist and unleashed a powerful punch straight into Blackfire's chest. Boom! Blackfire shot backward like a broken kite, crashing hard into the scorching sand and tumbling through the dust. Seeing his enemy fall, Tetrax Shard didn't hesitate. His hands reshaped into twin crystal spikes, his figure flickering as he rushed forward. He raised both hands, their edges gleaming coldly, and drove them toward Blackfire's chest with lethal force, leaving no room for escape. Slash! Suddenly, a crimson flash streaked across his vision. Tetrax Shard felt his legs go weightless, his balance vanished. His body jerked back uncontrollably, crashing onto the burning sand and kicking up a storm of smoke and dust. You think that last strike could hurt me? Blackfire rose to his feet, twirling the flaming scimitar in his hand. A sharp, familiar pain shot through Tetrax Shard's legs. He looked down in horror to see his severed limbs. The strike had been impossibly fast. Petrosapien, farewell, no farewell forever. Blackfire reversed his grip on the scimitar and thrust it toward Tetrax Shard's head. The crimson blade rapidly filled Tetrax Shard's vision. If it landed, he wouldn't survive. At that critical moment, a clear, determined female voice rang out. Gather air into water, condense water into dragon, turn dragon into soul slay. Gwen pressed her palms together, chanting the incantation in rapid succession. From the air, a ferocious water dragon materialized, coiling and writhing with power. Its claws tore through the mist, its body surrounded by surging waves of condensed water energy. In that desperate instant, Gwen broke through her long-standing limits, unleashing an intermediate-level water magic spell. Water Dragon Soul, she shouted, commanding the dragon to strike. Splash! The azure dragon, horned and fanged, roared as it surged forward, carrying a torrent of violent energy straight into Blackfire's midsection. Caught off guard, Blackfire, who had been about to finish off Tetrax Shard, was blasted backward, engulfed by the raging water and hurled into a cluster of buildings that collapsed with a thunderous crash. Awesome! Ben grinned. Nice work, Gwen. Grandpa Max gripped the pistol left behind by 6-6, aiming toward the wreckage. This guy's dangerous. Stay alert. Sure enough, the next moment, the collapsed buildings erupted with a deafening boom, flames bursting out and burning blood red, illuminating the night with a searing glare. "Thanks, Earthlings," Tetrax Shard said, his tone calm but firm. "But you should leave before you get caught in the fight." By now, he had already regenerated his legs. Clenching his crystal fists, he stared into the blazing inferno ahead. Boom! From within the firestorm, a blood-red fireball shot out, radiating deadly heat as it hurtled straight toward the stunned Gwen. Tetrax Shard moved instantly, forming a crystal shield in front of her. The fireball struck with a violent explosion. The shield shattered, scattering fragments of green crystal across the ground. "Go!" Tetrax Shard barked, turning back toward the enemy as he re-engaged Black Fire. Enraged, Black Fire swung his flaming scimitar with furious precision, his strikes fierce and unrelenting, each one cutting through the air with lethal speed. An opening! Tetrax Shard's eyes flashed. With perfect timing, he thrust his crystal palm forward, striking Black Fire's wrist and knocking the weapon clean from his hand. The blazing scimitar fell to the ground with a dull metallic clang. Tetrax Shard slammed his foot down, summoning a crystal cage around Black Fire's legs, locking him in place. His hands morphed into sharp spikes, unleashing a rapid barrage of strikes. Bang! 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 The crystal spikes hammered against Black Fire's helmet, shattering into bursts of emerald fragments. Under the relentless assault, Black Fire's fury exploded. A surge of wild flames erupted from his armor, staining the air crimson as waves of heat radiated outward. With a roar, he shattered the crystal cage. His hands blazed with blood-red fire as he slashed through the air, severing one of Tetrax Shard's arms in an instant. Then, faster than lightning, his flaming hand shot out, grabbing Tetrax Shard by the throat and lifting him effortlessly into the air. Behind the blackened helmet, two glowing crimson eyes burned with murderous intent. "The game's over, Petrosapien. Your kind is destined for extinction." Tetrax Shard clenched his jaw, his gaze unwavering. Even facing death, he refused to yield. Thud! Suddenly, a rusty iron rod struck Black Fire square in the back with a loud clang. Black Fire slowly turned, his eyes narrowing as he spotted a human boy awkwardly waving at him. Sorry to interrupt." "I'll, get going now," Ben said with a nervous laugh, inching backward. Black Fire raised his free hand, unleashing a column of blood-red flame that roared toward them like a fiery dragon. "Oh, man! I'm toast," Ben muttered, his face draining of color. Gwen began chanting another spell, but it was too late. Just before the pillar of fire struck, Grandpa Max pulled the trigger on 6-6's discarded blaster. A red beam burst forth, striking Black Fire squarely and sending him staggering backward. The fireball veered off course, slamming into the mine shaft beside Ben and vanishing into the darkness below. "No one hurts my grandson," Grandpa Max said calmly, blowing the smoke from the blaster's barrel. Black Fire retrieved his flaming scimitar from the ground, roaring in fury. Flames gushed from his armor's eye sockets. "You dare defy me, pitiful earthlings! You're playing with fire!" He swung the weapon with explosive force, unleashing a massive arc of crimson flame that tore through the air toward them. Water Dragon Soul! Gwen summoned another fierce water dragon, its roar shaking the ground as it surged forward to meet the blade of fire. Sizzle! The water dragon, though powerful, was cleaved in half on impact, dissolving into a burst of steam that vanished into the night. The group's expressions darkened as the crimson blade light filled their vision, seconds from cutting them down. "Not on my watch!" In a flash, a towering figure stepped before them, facing the blazing blade head-on. Chapter 40, Crystal Sword Rain. Facing the blazing arc of fire, Diamond Head stayed calm and steady. He slammed his fist into the ground. Boom! Countless massive crystal spikes burst from the sand, crossing and weaving in a powerful formation as they surged toward the searing blade of flame. In an instant, the crystal spikes collided with the fiery slash, clashing violently and ringing out with a sharp metallic shriek. Clang! 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 The flame blade, sharp enough to cut through iron like paper, sliced through several crystal spikes in succession, scattering showers of brilliant sparks. But it was soon overwhelmed by the relentless barrage, fading into a crimson shimmer that dissolved within the mirrored gleam of the crystals. Another Petrosapien! Black Fire snarled, gripping his flaming scimitar tightly. Then I'll just destroy you both, your kind will be wiped from existence. With a thunderous burst, he launched forward like a cannonball, charging straight at Diamond Head with ferocious speed. Come, Diamond Head said evenly, his eyes calm and unreadable. Be careful! Tetrax Shard shouted, preparing to rush in, but Diamond Head stopped him. He turned slightly and pointed toward the nearby 6-6 and Crab. You take care of them. Those two are nearly finished, it shouldn't be hard to bring them down. As for Black Fire, he's mine. Determination gleamed in Diamond Head's gaze. Tetrax Shard hesitated for a moment, then nodded. There was something about Diamond Head, an undeniable confidence that made him believe in his words. Understood. Without hesitation, Tetrax Shard sprinted toward 6-6 and Crab to stop them from interfering. Once he was gone, Diamond Head turned to Ben and the others, motioning for them to move to safety. Then he stood alone, facing the raging inferno that was Black Fire. Wreathed in blood-red flames, Black Fire gripped his scimitar tightly, his aura twisting like a monstrous fire serpent ready to devour its prey. You've got guts, kid, challenging me alone. Didn't you see what happened to that Petrosapien just now? Black Fire roared. I saw, Diamond Head replied coldly. So what? He raised his hand, forming a crystal spear from thin air and hurling it forward with immense force. Black Fire's eyes widened. He didn't dare take the attack lightly, his blade swung instantly, striking the crystal spear head-on. Clang! The flaming scimitar crashed into the green spear, but the blade sank only halfway before getting stuck fast, unable to cut through. What? Black Fire was stunned. This was impossible. His fire-forged blade had always shredded Petrosapien crystals effortlessly, especially against Tetrax Shard. Yet now, his weapon couldn't even pierce halfway. Tetrax Shard was already among the most powerful of his race, and Black Fire had never encountered a stronger opponent. But the being before him was stronger still. You're even stronger than that, traitor? Then you can't be allowed to live. Black Fire roared, unleashing every ounce of his power. His aura flared violently, the ground trembling beneath the weight of his fury. He could no longer retreat. Whether it was the galactic warlord Vilgax or the Omnitrix's wielder, both were beyond his control. There was only one option left: kill the threat before it grew stronger. Then come. Diamond Head's arm morphed into a massive crystal blade, its edge gleaming coldly. From his body erupted a storm of sword-like crystal shards, streaking through the air like a deadly downpour. Swish! 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 Thousands of razor-sharp crystal swords rained down, glittering with a lethal brilliance as they descended on Black Fire. So cool! Ben shouted, jumping up excitedly. It was the first time he'd ever seen something like this. Gwen's eyes sparkled as she nodded, admiration softening her voice. Yet, my cousin isn't just handsome, he's awesome when he fights. Grandpa Max chuckled. Of course. What did you expect? Look who his grandfather is. At that moment, Black Fire halted his advance and spun his flaming scimitar at high speed, forming a blood-red vortex to block the incoming storm of crystal blades. Clang! 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 Metallic clashes rang through the air as the crystal swords struck the fiery vortex. Each impact sent waves of brutal force reverberating through Black Fire's arms. He gritted his teeth and held on, but the relentless pressure forced him to stumble backward. The crystal blades were too strong, unfazed by his flames. He could only deflect them slightly, unable to absorb the full impact. Finally, the onslaught proved too much. A barrage of crystal blades struck his chest, hurling him backward at blinding speed. He crashed into the ground, rolling helplessly across the sand. Seeing the opening, Diamond had charged forward. The crystal blades had hit their mark, but Blackfire's armor was extremely tough. The blades had only pierced a few centimeters. It wasn't enough to finish him. As Diamond Head closed in, he hurled several crystal spears straight at the fallen opponent. He'd learned from Tetrax Shard's earlier mistake he wouldn't rush in recklessly and risk a counterattack. Sure enough, just as the crystal spears were about to strike, Blackfire rolled to his feet, twisting his body sharply to evade the attack. He landed firmly on the scorched sand, eyes blazing with murderous rage as he faced Diamond Head head-on. "Playing dead doesn't work on me," Diamond Head said coolly. Blackfire's chest was riddled with wounds. He clenched his flaming scimitar, voice hoarse but filled with fury. "Then it's settled. Today, only one of us walks away alive." With a roar, he swung his blade, unleashing a blazing arc of fire straight at Diamond Head. Diamond Head conjured a solid crystal barrier in front of him, blocking the fiery strike. Whoosh! A sharp gust tore through the air. Blackfire vaulted over the barrier, raising his scimitar high. It blazed with lethal heat as he brought it down in a crushing blow. "Good." Diamond Head thrust his hand upward. It expanded rapidly, transforming into a massive emerald crystal hand that seized the scimitar mid-swing. The flaming blade sizzled and hissed under the crystal's grip, heat distorting the air around it. "It's over." Diamond Head swung his arm, smashing the captured weapon and Blackfire along with it into the rocky ground with explosive force. He kicked the scimitar aside, then raised his hand again, forming a crystalline vest that locked tightly around Blackfire's body, pinning him to the ground. "You!" Blackfire struggled desperately, pulling at the crystal restraint, but it wouldn't budge. As crimson light flared in his palm, ready to release a surge of flame, Diamond Head acted first. A crystal halberd materialized in his grip, and he drove it down hard into Blackfire's chest. Crack, crack! A harsh grinding echoed as the halberd pierced through the armor, pressing deeper until it sank into Blackfire's body. Blackfire's eyes widened in shock. He thrashed violently, but the crystal bindings held him fast, giving him no chance to escape. Then, with a final, decisive thrust, Diamond Head drove the halberd through his heart. Blackfire's pupil shrank. His body went still, then limp, the flames around him flickering out. Moments later, he was motionless. Bounty Hunter Blackfire deceased. Ding! Blackfire successfully eliminated. Random Hero Gene Chest obtained. Stored in inventory, accessible anytime. A series of system chimes echoed in Lucian's mind. Staring at the corpse before him, Diamond Head's expression remained calm. Without a word, he willed the chest open. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 41, Chapter 41, The Eerie Smile. Ding! Congratulations, host, on acquiring a new hero. Beep. 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 A crimson glow burst from Diamond Head's body before fading away, revealing Lucian standing where he was. For a moment, he looked dazed. The new hero's power was undeniable, but in the original story, this one almost never won a fight. Staring at the holographic projection on the Omnitrix, Lucian fell into thought, unsure if this was good or bad news. "Forget it," he sighed softly. "Let's hope you can show your full potential with me." Before long, Tetrax Shard's battle had also come to an end. 6-6 and Crab were completely out of ammunition, beaten into the dirt by Diamond Head. Against the seasoned Tetrax Shard, they didn't stand a chance and were quickly subdued. Tetrax pulled out a spatial cube and sealed the two inside, intending to deliver them to an alien prison. The fight's finally over, Gwen exhaled, wiping sweat from her forehead. Casting Water Dragon Soul multiple times had drained much of her mana, it would take a while to recover. Oh man, that was awesome! Cuz totally wrecked that knife-wielding freak! Ben shouted, still buzzing with excitement at the sight of Diamond Head's battle. Grandpa Max smiled. Lucian's gotten a lot stronger lately. Handling regular aliens shouldn't be a problem for him anymore. No way, Grandpa. I think no alien's a match for Cuz now, Ben said confidently. Grandpa chuckled but didn't comment. Just then, Tetrax Shard walked up to Lucian. You're a warrior worthy of respect. The Omnitrix should be in your hands, he said sincerely. Really? Aren't you worried someone might try to steal it? Lucian asked. With its new owner here, I have nothing to worry about, Tetrax replied, glancing up at the sky. Still, don't let your guard down. The universe is full of beings who covet the Omnitrix. You must be prepared for what's to come. Lucian smiled. Don't worry. I won't let anyone take my little watch. After a brief pause, Tetrax handed over the hoverboard. Take this. You might need it one day. Lucian froze for a moment before his eyes lit up with excitement. His heart raced as he held the sleek, metallic board. Tetrax's hoverboard. Back when he'd watched the original show, he'd always dreamed of owning one flying freely through the sky, fast and untouchable. What kid wouldn't want something that cool? Thanks, Lucian said sincerely. Tetrax waved a hand. Protect the Omnitrix. That's the best thanks you can give me. A red light flared around his body, swirling faster and faster until he vanished into the air. Looking around at the battle-scarred mine, Grandpa Max sighed with a weary smile and turned to the others. All right, kids. You've had a long day. How about Grandpa takes you somewhere fun to relax? His voice was warm, his tone gentle. Ben's eyes lit up instantly. Yes. Grandpa, you're the best. Where are we going? Gwen tilted her head in curiosity. Yeah, where exactly? That's a secret. Grandpa Max grinned mischievously, a playful glint in his eyes. For some reason, Lucian felt a twinge of unease. Something told him this next trip was going to be memorable. Traffic crawled along the highway, a wall of steel shimmering under the relentless sun, stretching endlessly into the distance. It was probably the holiday rush. Horns blared, curses flew, and the air was thick with impatience. The rust bucket was jammed in the middle of it all, moving a few meters at a time. Sweat rolled down Grandpa Max's forehead as he gripped the steering wheel, a helpless smile tugging at his lips. At this pace, we'll get there sometime next century, he muttered wryly. Next to him, Ben had his face pressed flat against the window, making silly faces at a kid in the neighboring car, laughing like it was the best game in the world. Gwen stood with her hands on her hips, watching him in disbelief. Keep that up and your face might freeze that way. Then again, that might actually be an improvement. Relax, nerd. I'm not gonna end up like some people, Ben shot back, then resumed his contest. The kid across the way wasn't backing down. He pulled out a bag of dried sweet potatoes, stuffed them into his mouth, chewed furiously, then stuck out a yellow-stained tongue at Ben, looking disgustingly grotesque. Ben grimaced. Ugh, that's nasty. Meanwhile, Lucian sat quietly, earbuds in, listening to a new English track and enjoying the rare peace. Grandpa Max's expression suddenly changed. Up ahead, something was wrong. An argument had broken out. Just a few cars ahead, 7 or 8 burly men had jumped out of a van. They yanked open the door of the car in front and dragged out 2 women, who looked terrified and frail. A heated confrontation erupted immediately, drawing the attention of nearby drivers. One woman, on the verge of tears, pointed to the back of her car. You're the one who didn't keep your distance. You hit us first, and now you're trying to blame us. Bullshit. You slammed your brakes and made me hit you, snarled a greasy man, his face wobbling with rage. In traffic like this, everyone's crawling. Why would I even brake that hard? The younger woman shot back, her eyes red as she tried to stand her ground. The men exchanged sinister grins and surrounded them, cracking their knuckles. I'm warning you, pay for our repairs and damages, or things are gonna get ugly. Bitches think they can mouth off, one sneered. No cash? Then maybe you can pay another way. Another added with a disgusting grin. The men looked like thugs straight out of a nightmare, huge, broad, and radiating menace. The two women stood frozen, trembling, their faces pale. One of them fumbled for her phone, but before she could dial, several of the men lunged forward and tore it from her hands. You still think you can call the cops? The tattooed man narrowed his eyes, a cold smirk on his face. We're being generous, handling this privately. Push your luck, and we'll show you what real pain feels like. Hey, buddy, called a nearby driver, a cigarette dangling from his lips as he leaned out his window. That's enough. I saw what happened. You were in the wrong. Don't make this worse, let the girls go. Son of a bitch. The tattooed man roared and stormed over with his crew. They grabbed the middle-aged man and yanked him from his car. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Keep mouthing off and I'll bury you right here. Years of street life had hardened the thug. He feared no one, especially not some ordinary-looking man. You're out of line, the driver growled, pulling out his phone to call for help. But before he could press a button, they snatched it away. The group surrounded him and began to beat him mercilessly. Fists and boots flew, each strike landing hard. Blood spattered the ground, but the man refused to beg, gritting his teeth and enduring every blow. He cursed himself for not calling sooner. The two women watched in horror, shaking uncontrollably. No one dared step in. Other drivers locked their doors, watching from behind glass, pretending not to see. A few pulled out their phones not to help, but to record, forwarding the video to their group chats like it was entertainment. Only a handful actually called the police. It was all they could do. Outnumbered and overwhelmed, the middle-aged driver was beaten to the ground, kicked around like a discarded ball. One of the thugs, his eyes red with rage, dashed back to the van and grabbed a glass bottle. He raised it high and charged, ready to smash it down on the man's skull. Just as the bottle was about to connect, a cold hand caught his wrist mid-swing. "Be boss." The greasy man turned, staring blankly at the tattooed leader. Something was wrong. His boss's face looked different. A strange, icy aura radiated from him, sending a chill straight through his bones. The tattooed man's eyes glinted with a cruel, unnatural coldness. Then he smiled slow and twisted. Chapter 42, Chapter 42, Not even God could save you. The tattooed man's lips curved slightly, a faint purple light flickering in his eyes. "Apologize to the two ladies, and to this driver," he said hoarsely. The greasy man froze, eyes bulging in disbelief. "Be boss, that doesn't sound like you at all," he stammered, forcing a nervous laugh. "You used to tell us that the word sorry doesn't exist in your dictionary. What's gotten into you?" The other thugs looked equally confused, their wide, frog-like eyes fixed on the tattooed man as if he'd lost his mind. "Enough talk," the tattooed man snapped, his tone turning sharp and deadly. His gaze swept coldly over his men. "Are you defying me now? Say one more word and I'll cripple every one of you." The words hit like a thunderclap. The men immediately cowered, trembling and shaking their heads. "No, no, we wouldn't dare. Boss, we were wrong. We'll never do it again. We'll turn over a new leaf, swear it." Hearing their frantic pleas, the tattooed man's expression eased slightly. "Hand over all the cash you've got," he ordered. "It'll go toward their car repairs and medical bills." He extended his hand, palm open. The greasy man's face twisted in misery. Fighting back tears, he dug into his pockets and pulled out a few crumpled bills, his hand shaking as he passed them over. Seriously? That's it? Barely a few dozen bucks, the tattooed man muttered, twitching with frustration. The rest fared no better. They patted themselves down, emptying their pockets of loose change and small bills barely enough to buy lunch. 8 grown men together couldn't scrape up more than 500 yuan. The tattooed man sighed and shrugged. He reached into his own pocket, pulling out another 100 or so, and added it to the pile. He handed the total just over 600 to the 2 women and the middle-aged driver. The driver, however, shook his head firmly and refused to take it, insisting the money go entirely to the women. The onlookers were stunned into silence. No way! That guy's one of the worst thugs around here. Did he just apologize? Maybe he's had a change of heart, good for him. Yeah, right. Or maybe he's possessed, someone muttered under their breath. The crowd buzzed with confused whispers, half amazed, half unsettled. The tattooed man, followed by his hulking crew, handed over the last of the money and walked toward the bloodied driver. My apologies. My men didn't know any better, he said quietly, extending a hand to help the man up. The driver slapped it away with a glare. Keep your apology. Just give me back my phone. The thugs behind the tattooed man immediately bristled and surged forward, surrounding the driver. My boss is trying to be nice, and you've got the nerve to disrespect him. You've got some guts, old man. Teach him a lesson. A burly man cursed under his breath, grabbed the driver by the collar, and drew back a fist the size of a sandbag, ready to swing. Stop! The tattooed man cracked his neck, a sinister smile curling across his face. Give him back his phone. But... The greasy man hesitated, unsure of what to say. Now! The tattooed man's low growl cut through the air, his eyes flashing with a deadly chill. The greasy man froze. Every hair on his body stood on end as cold sweat trickled down his back. He stumbled forward and, trembling, handed the phone back to the middle-aged driver. He panted heavily, nearly scared to death by his own boss. Deep down, he had the bone-deep certainty that if he'd disobeyed just now, he would have been killed on the spot. Not far away, everyone in the rust bucket was watching the bizarre scene unfold. What's up with Lucian? Could this be a side effect of the transformation? Grandpa Max frowned, staring at the tattooed man's cold, predatory expression. Ben scratched his head. Maybe, he's just trying to scare them. I doubt it. Who knows what's gotten into him? Gwen muttered, worry clouding her face. Even her usual enthusiasm for gaming was gone. The highway remained completely jammed. The driver, now with his phone back, quickly climbed into his car, rolled up the windows, and started shouting into the receiver, probably cursing someone out. The tattooed man shrugged it off. He led his crew back to the 2 frightened women, apologizing once more before turning to his men with a harsh rebuke. Then he announced, "That's it. We're done. Everyone goes their own way back home, back to your moms." Minutes later, the tough-looking thugs were bawling their eyes out, snot and tears flowing as they repented their past misdeeds. They hugged each other tightly, ready to part ways. "Boss, we'll miss you. If you ever need plumbing work done, call me. We don't want to say goodbye, boss." Watching the crying, blubbering men, the tattooed man twitched visibly, a black line forming on his forehead. Without a word, he turned to leave. Vroom! Suddenly, the desert beside the highway erupted with a deep, rumbling roar of engines. The tattooed man froze and looked over. A dozen massive off-road vehicles came barreling across the sand, crushing cacti and spraying grit everywhere like a stampede of maddened bulls. What the hell? Moments later, the SUVs screeched to a halt beside the congested traffic, drifting dramatically. Their heavy wheels kicked up thick plumes of yellow dust, blanketing the nearby cars in a choking haze. Some drivers honked in anger, but no one dared say a word. None of them wanted trouble. More than 30 burly men jumped from the vehicles, encircling the group with hostile glares. The greasy man and his crew froze, stunned speechless. "Boss, we're here," shouted the leader of the newcomers, calling out to the middle-aged driver. "Boss!" The greasy man's eyes widened. "Oh, hell, we picked a fight with a big shot." The middle-aged driver wiped the blood from his forehead, his expression darkening. "Beat them! Beat them hard! Back in my street days, I never took crap like this," he barked. "Yes, sir," the leader roared, rallying his men to attack. The thugs paled instantly, clutching their heads and pleading for mercy. "You hurt our boss? Not even God himself can save you now," the leader shouted, swinging his arm. "Go! Beat them into paste!" "Stop!" The tattooed man's gravelly voice cut through the chaos. "Oh? Who the hell are you supposed to be?" The leader sneered. "You rough up our boss, then try to play the hero? Spare me! Fake bastard! Boys, tear him apart! Give him some extra attention while you're at it!" Whoosh! The moment the words left his mouth, the mob erupted. Over 30 men charged forward, fists flying as they surged toward the tattooed man and his crew. "Boss, what do we do?" the greasy man whimpered, his face wrinkling in panic. The tattooed man stood still, his back to them, silent. "Be boss!" The greasy man stumbled around to face him, then froze in horror. The skin around the tattooed man's eyes had split into jagged black cracks. His irises glowed an ominous violet, radiating a suffocating aura of murderous rage. Chapter 43, Ghostfreak, the prison within? Do it! His voice was ice cold. The greasy man shook his head frantically. "Bro, we need to run. There's too many of them, we can't win this. 9 men against 30? Unless they were elite soldiers, that was suicide." But what happened next left the greasy man completely dumbstruck. The tattooed man clenched his fists, the blue dragon inked on his arm twisting to life. With a violent push of his legs, he launched himself straight into the crowd like a bullet. "Barehanded, 1 man against 30. Arrogant fool," the leader bellowed. "Brothers, take him down." "Yes, sir." Dozens of burly men, muscles bulging and eyes wild, roared like beasts and charged. In the blink of an eye, the tattooed man's lean frame disappeared into the mob. His eyes glowed a fierce violet, his grin dark and twisted. A wave of chilling energy poured from his body as his fists flew in every direction, striking anyone who came near. His power was monstrous, his movements unpredictable. The 30-plus attackers couldn't get the upper hand, several were already sent flying through the air. The greasy man's jaw dropped. "When the hell did Big Brother get this strong?" he muttered, then snapped to his senses. "Come on, brothers! If he's fighting, we can't just stand here yet. Let's get him!" shouted the scarred man, eyes flashing. The others roared in agreement, charging forward to join the brawl. At that moment, the tattooed man slammed one fighter aside only for another to grab him from behind. "I've got him! Hit him, now!" the man shouted. The tattooed man sneered, grabbed the man's arm, and flipped him over his shoulder, slamming him into the asphalt. The man howled in agony. Crack! The tattooed man's knuckles popped as he swung another crushing punch into the man's chest. 2 more brutes lunged from behind, grabbing his arms and trying desperately to restrain him. But with one violent twist, the tattooed man flung them both away like rag dolls. They smashed into a nearby car, setting off its alarm in a blaring chorus. The pause gave the others time to regroup. More men surged from all sides, surrounding him again like a tidal wave of muscle. Any ordinary person would have been overwhelmed long ago. But the tattooed man was anything but ordinary. A dozen of them tackled him, locking onto his body, trying to pin him down and pummel him. "Let me go!" The tighter they held, the more feral he became. He let out a guttural roar, exploding with raw power, throwing everyone around him to the ground. His clothes were torn to shreds, but he didn't care. He dove back into the fray like a wild beast. Seeing their boss fight like a demon, his men's morale skyrocketed. Fueled by adrenaline, they threw themselves into the chaos, fists flying in a frenzy. Inside his car, the middle-aged driver watched in shock, his mouth hanging open. What the hell is that thing? Boom! A deafening crash echoed as the tattooed man grabbed a terrified brute like a child's toy and slammed him onto the roof of a car. The man's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed, unconscious. The tattooed man climbed onto the car roof, his violet eyes burning as he looked down on the trembling crowd. "You can't beat me, ha," he said with a chilling grin. The leader gritted his teeth, rage flooding his face. "If you've got the guts, come down here. We'll smash that smug face of yours," he shouted, pointing furiously. He refused to believe this freak couldn't be taken down. The tattooed man's muscles tensed, veins bulging. "Then I'll kill you," he said coldly. He leapt from the car, diving straight at the leader. "Stop him," the leader shouted, stumbling backward. "Don't let him get close." He knew exactly what this monster could do. If the man got within arm's reach, it was over. Only their sheer numbers had kept them standing this long. More than 20 men surged forward, throwing out every technique they knew: turtle fist, mantis fist, karate, judo, swinging wildly at the tattooed man. Bang! 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 Each impact sent a body flying. One after another, the men crashed into parked cars, collapsing in heaps like dumplings dropping into a boiling pot, unmoving. "You're the only one left." The tattooed man cracked his neck and gave the leader a twisted smile. "Please, please don't kill me. We didn't know who we were dealing with. Big brother, I'm begging you, let us go." Sensing danger, the leader immediately dropped to his knees. A wise man knew when to bow his head. "Too late," the tattooed man said in a low, hollow tone. He raised his scarred fist and drove it toward the leader's face with terrifying force. If that punch connected, the man would be dead or maimed for life. At the very last moment, the tattooed man froze, his entire body suddenly enveloped in a shimmering, transparent bubble of water. The leader's eyes went wide. Without hesitation, he turned and bolted toward the SUVs, fleeing for his life from the monstrous figure. Inside the watery prison, the tattooed man let out a guttural roar and slammed his palm against the bubble, sending violent ripples through it. "Cuz! Wake up!" Gwen shouted as she cast her water magic, struggling to keep him restrained. The tattooed man stopped, a flicker of clarity surfacing in his eyes. He clutched his head in pain, writhing on the ground. "Ghostfreak, get out of my body!" But within seconds, his eyes turned violet again, and his voice twisted with madness. "You think I want to stay here? To me, you're nothing but a prison, a prison." As his words echoed, the tattooed man ripped apart the water bubble and lunged straight at Gwen. "Ah!" Gwen gasped and stumbled back, but he caught her by the wrist. "Look, Lucian! I'll make you watch as your sweet, innocent Gwen is killed by your own hands." A murderous glint flashed in the tattooed man's eyes as he reached for her throat. Suddenly, a rope looped tightly around his neck from behind. "Grandpa, quick! Tie up cuz Lucian!" Ben yelled, straining every muscle as he pulled the rope tighter. He couldn't let his out-of-control cousin hurt their nerdy cousin. "Good work, Ben." Grandpa Max moved fast. In a few swift motions, he wrapped the tattooed man up like a cocoon and tossed him to the ground. The tattooed man thrashed wildly, but the ropes held firm. "Save your strength. That's reinforced nylon. Unless you've got superhuman power, you're not breaking out of that," Grandpa said confidently. The tattooed man's expression twisted into something feral, a low growl rumbling from his throat. "Cuz, come on, wake up. Snap out of it. This isn't cool." Ben shouted, leaning close to his ear, calling out to Lucian again and again. Earlier, Lucian had seen someone bullying the weak. He'd turned into Ghostfreak, intending to punish the thugs in secret without causing a scene. That was why he'd possessed one of the gang members' bodies. But things had gone horribly wrong. After Ben's relentless shouting, the tattooed man's breathing began to slow. Gradually, his eyes cleared. Then, his body went limp. A pale, ghostly figure rose from within him and hovered in the air. Looking down at his spectral hands, Ghostfreak rasped, "This isn't good." Beep. 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 Suddenly, the Omnitrix on his chest started to flash. Ghostfreak's eyes narrowed, and he shot off toward the rust bucket. Chapter 44, Sparksville. The sun blazed overhead, flooding the endless desert highway with waves of scorching heat. The glaring light bounced off countless car roofs, scattering dazzling gold reflections as the packed lanes finally began to inch forward, slowly untangling. Not long after Ghostfreak returned to the rust bucket, local police arrived in a rush, hauling away the greasy-looking man and his gang, along with the middle-aged driver and his crew. Among those taken was the bewildered tattooed man. He had barely regained consciousness before being rewarded with a pair of shiny silver handcuffs. Lucian sat quietly on the couch, his expression dark and unreadable, not saying a word. Grandpa Max kept his eyes on the road. "Lucian, something was off about you today. You weren't your usual calm self." "Yet, cuz," Ben added, shrugging. "I thought you were just gonna rough them up, not try to kill the guy." Gwen walked over and sat down beside Lucian, speaking softly. "I know cuz had his reasons. He wouldn't just kill someone without cause." Even though that tattooed thug had nearly strangled her, she still trusted Lucian completely. "Lucian," she asked gently, "do you know what went wrong?" Lucian drew in a deep breath. "At first, it was fine. I just felt a little cold, but I could still control myself. Then, when all 30 of them rushed me, something snapped. This strange anger and hatred just took over. I couldn't think about anything except beating them, maybe even killing them. Could it be, something's wrong with the alien you turned into?" Grandpa Max suggested suddenly. Lucian arched a brow. "Leave it to the veteran plumber to hit the nail on the head in one sentence." "No way," Ben said with a grin. "Ghostfreak looks pretty awesome if you ignore the nightmare fuel part." Gwen frowned slightly. "Either way, cuz, you need to rest. Take some time to recover." Lucian nodded slowly, then looked up, guilt flickering in his eyes. "Sorry, Gwen. I almost hurt you back there." She smiled faintly, her cheeks tinged pink. "It's fine. As long as you're okay." "All right, that's enough serious talk," Grandpa Max said with a wave and a grin. "Now that the traffic's cleared, I'm taking you all somewhere special." "Oh yeah? Awesome!" Ben cheered, practically bouncing in his seat. Lucian gave a small smile, though his thoughts were elsewhere, already planning how to face the danger that was sure to come. That thing wasn't going to be easy to deal with. After nearly 2 hours on the road, the rust bucket finally rolled to a stop at their destination. Grandpa Max pulled out several black satin ribbons and tied them over everyone's eyes, a mischievous grin on his face. Once they were out of the vehicle, he finally said, "All right, take 'em off." Lucian lifted his head, eyes settling on a massive sign overhead, bright red English letters gleaming in the sunlight. Thanks to the memories of his body's original owner, he could read it easily. The sign read, Sparksville. Sparksville looked rather outdated, with its old amusement facilities so worn that few visitors ever came. Towering deer statues stood on the rooftops alongside oversized beer bottles and hot air balloons, all arranged in a distinctly 80s-90s style. There was no Ferris wheel, no pirate ship, no roller coaster, not even a carousel. Ben and Gwen were speechless. "Welcome to Sparksville. Isn't this place amazing?" Grandpa Max beamed, clearly holding fond memories of it. Not at all. Ben shot back. He couldn't see anything fun about it. Gwen sighed. Good thing I brought my laptop, or I'd die of boredom. It was obvious the park didn't appeal to them, it just wasn't meant for their age group. Welcome to Sparksville, guests of joy, a middle-aged man in a blue shirt approached, expressionless. I'm the park director. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks, director. Grandpa Max was full of energy. He waved and smiled. All right, kids, I'll go handle the check-in. Don't cause any trouble. Lucian, keep an eye on them. Got it, Grandpa, Lucian replied with a nod. He looked around and quickly noticed how empty the place was. He could count the number of people here on one hand. Ben and Gwen didn't wander off either, they weren't interested enough to bother. Before long, Grandpa Max came back holding several tickets and handed them to Lucian. Lucian, take Ben and Gwen to have some fun around Sparksville, Grandpa Max said kindly, wiping sweat from his forehead. I'm a little tired from driving, so I'll rest in the room for a bit. Lucian nodded. After hours stuck in desert traffic and a few small incidents on the way, it was no surprise Grandpa was exhausted. All right, Grandpa, you go rest. I'll keep an eye on Ben and Gwen, Lucian said with a light smile. Grandpa patted his shoulder. Kid, I can rest easy with you here. A wave of warmth stirred in Lucian's chest. He smiled, saying nothing more. After escorting Grandpa Max back to his room, Lucian led Ben and Gwen to the ticket gate. Seeing the deserted counter, Ben rolled his eyes. Ugh, this place is dead. We've been played. All right, Ben. I can tell Grandpa really likes it here. Let's just humor him for a bit, Lucian said, pressing the bell on the counter. Next time, I'll take you to the arcade. Deal. Awesome. You're the best, cuz. Ben cheered. Soon, a middle-aged man stepped out and stood behind the counter. Ben scratched his head. Wait, aren't you the park director? The director took the tickets from Lucian, expressionless, tore them to pieces, and said calmly, Kid, I'm sure you understand the meaning of those who can, do more. Lucian's mouth twitched slightly. It was obvious there weren't enough visitors to justify hiring a separate ticket clerk. But there was no need to call him out. He simply led Ben and Gwen into the park. And so, their tour of Sparksville began. They took photos with the deer statue, marveled at houses built from giant playing cards, and drifted through a dim space-themed chamber, gazing up at models of the 9 planets. What broke the illusion was Lucian spotting a staff member holding a light nearby, trying to make the starry wallpaper and planet models look more realistic, adding to the cosmic atmosphere. Lucian shrugged. He had to admit the place was really boring. Before long, the park director appeared again. He led them to a wooden cabin and said, Once you pass through this door, you'll see the strangest and wildest attraction in the Sparksville. Remember, follow the rules, he added. Lucian nodded and led Ben and Gwen inside. It was pitch black inside, he couldn't see a thing. Oh man, I'd rather go home and play hide and seek. Ben groaned. No sooner had he spoken than the darkness was flooded with lights, bright, colorful, and dazzling. Gwen looked around and read aloud. Do not touch it. Do not photograph it. Do not use batteries or any electronic devices near it. Chapter 45, Chapter 45, Buzzshock. Click. A sharp sound echoed as the room's lights flicked on, driving away the darkness. Before them stood a massive wooden crate. Painted across it in red English letters were the words, This is it. Moments later, the crate creaked open on its own, revealing what was inside: a giant rubber ball. Ben stared for a while before blurting out, This isn't cool at all. What's so weird or crazy about a rubber ball? I don't get it. I'm with you, Gwen said, nodding. She couldn't understand why Grandpa liked this place either. Lucian looked at the motionless rubber ball. He vaguely remembered that something was sealed inside it. All right, let's head back. There's really nothing fun here. Lucian shook his head. It was best to leave as soon as possible. The Ghostfreak problem was still unresolved. He didn't want to make things worse or invite new trouble. Just then, Ben's eyes lit up with mischief. He pulled out a thin iron rod and tiptoed toward the rubber ball. Gwen's face changed. Don't go over there, doofus. The director told us to follow the rules, no touching it. Relax, nerd. Don't you want to know what's inside? With that, Ben raised the rod and tapped the ball. Thud. In the next instant, a large hand grabbed the rod and hurled it away. We're leaving, Lucian said evenly. He was the one who had thrown it. "'Cause." Ben stared at him for a moment, then nodded. Lucian led Ben and Gwen out of the eerie wooden cabin. They had no idea that not long after they left, 2 teenage delinquents slipped inside. "Mike, there's nothing fun here. Let's just go," said a blond boy, glancing around. Mike, with his dyed red hair, grinned. "No way. Grandpa told me there's some awesome amusement set up here." When they got back, Lucian found Grandpa already asleep. Ben and Gwen, worn out from the day, soon drifted off too. Lucian sat on the sofa, lost in thought. Ghostfreak was showing signs of losing control. Its escape was only a matter of time, and once it did, the first thing it would try was taking over Lucian's body. After all, the Omnitrix was on his wrist. No matter how long he thought, he couldn't find a better plan. The only solution was to defeat the rampaging Ghostfreak and force it back into the watch. With that thought, Lucian sank into the soft sofa and slowly drifted to sleep. Early the next morning, the rising sun bathed Sparksville in bright light, bringing warmth and clarity to the scene. Lucian lay on the sofa, suddenly jolted awake by a commotion. Grandpa Max stood by the glass window, staring in astonishment at the sight outside. "What happened?" "Overnight, Sparksville looks like it was swept by a typhoon." Lucian's eyes narrowed, the last traces of sleep vanishing. He rushed to his grandfather's side and looked out the window. The amusement rides nearby looked as if a giant hand had torn them apart, scattered wreckage littering the ground. Scorch marks were everywhere, and the surrounding power lines hung severed and limp against the dirt. "I'm going out to see what exactly happened here." Grandpa Max's expression grew grave as he pushed open the door and stepped outside. Just as Lucian was about to follow, Ben and Gwen woke up. Hearing their grandfather's voice, they ran from their room. With no other choice, Lucian took the two and chased after Grandpa Max, arriving at the scene. Ruins and debris stretched across the area, a picture of devastation. Burn marks and signs of electrical discharge scarred the ground, and curious onlookers whispered among themselves. The mayor looked distressed. This was going to cost a fortune to repair. Just after ending a phone call, Grandpa Max came running over, panting. "What happened here? Everything was fine yesterday. Are we rebuilding?" "No," the mayor said slowly. "It escaped." "It? Who is it?" Gwen asked. "The spark," the mayor replied flatly, his eyes dull and lifeless. "We've always kept it sealed inside that rubber ball. For some reason, it slipped out last night. Some say it's a living electric light. Others claim it's the result of static fields. There are countless theories, but no one truly knows what it is." Grandpa Max's eyebrow rose as he turned sharply toward Ben. "Grandpa, I didn't." Ben protested. "Grandpa, Ben really didn't cause any trouble," Lucian spoke up. "Yesterday, I took them on a short tour and then went back to our rental apartment. We didn't break any rules." Hearing that, Grandpa's expression eased. "It's true, Grandpa. Maybe someone else released the spark," Gwen added quickly. She had no intention of taking the blame for someone else's mess. The mayor nodded slightly, expressionless. "Indeed, you weren't the only ones who entered the cabin yesterday." He turned to glance at a blond boy and a red-haired youth standing not far away. The latter stiffened, guilt flickering across his face. "Looks like it was these two little rascals," the mayor said evenly. "Zzzt." Suddenly, a streak of golden lightning flashed behind Ben, making him jump. "Oh my god, what the hell is that?" Ben shouted. A small black hand tapped his right shoulder. Ben spun around. Nothing was there. "It's on your left," the mayor reminded him. Ben turned to his left and froze. A tiny black and yellow figure floated there, its body crackling with electricity as it grinned mischievously. "Ha ha ha ha." Buzzshock pointed at Ben, laughing slyly. "You jerk." Ben lunged forward, trying to grab the creature, but it easily dodged him. Buzzshock moved impossibly fast, flickering in and out of sight. After toying with Ben, it turned to Gwen. It tugged on her clothes, patted her shoulder, stuck out its tongue. Every childish prank it could think of, it used, clearly enjoying itself. Frustrated, Gwen tried to cast her water magic, but her spell was too slow to hit the target. Then, in a flash of gold, Buzzshock darted into a nearby vending machine. The machine began to tremble violently, its surface glowing with intense light. "What's it doing?" Ben asked. "It's absorbing electricity. The more power it gathers, the stronger it becomes," the mayor said grimly, pausing before adding, "and most dangerous of all, it has an extremely hazardous sense of humor." Tap tap tap. Before he could finish, the vending machine erupted, launching a storm of soda bottles like bullets toward Lucian and the others. Lucian flickered aside, dodging the barrage, and sprinted into a shaded alley. Once he confirmed no one was around, he pressed the Omnitrix. A holographic projection of the alien forms appeared, cycling rapidly through the options. 4 arms, swamp fire, stink fly, upgrade. XLR8. You're the one. Lucian's gaze sharpened as he slammed his hand down on the device. Thud. A burst of eerie green light flared in the alley before fading to silence. Looking at his rough, powerful hands, Lucian felt energy surging through him as if he could overturn a massive locomotive with a single motion. Humongousaur. Chapter 46, Chapter 46, Humongousaur. Bang bang bang. Countless beverage bottles erupted from the machine like a deadly machine gun, firing at full throttle. They merged into a terrifying storm of steel, howling as they tore through the air toward the crowd. Tourists around them panicked, screaming as they scattered in every direction. Ha 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 ha. The vending machine glanced left and right, then burst into shrill laughter. It bounced and hopped wildly, speeding after Ben. "Oh my god, this can't be real." Ben felt his scalp tingle as adrenaline surged through him. Mustering every ounce of strength, he bolted in the opposite direction. Clank! 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 Buzzshock controlled the massive vending machine, bouncing along like a crazed parasite clinging to Ben's back. A barrage of glass bottles shot from the machine, cutting through the air toward him. Feeling the gust of wind behind him, Ben leapt forward just in time to avoid being hit. With a series of sharp cracks, the bottles smashed into the ground, shattering instantly. Countless shards of glass glittered as they scattered and drifted down like fragments of crystal. "Why are you always chasing me?" Ben yelled. "You little freak! What's your problem?" This annoying electric gremlin was even worse than his ditzy cousin. Ha 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 ha. Buzzshock's laughter echoed from within the machine, persistent and piercing, as if locked onto Ben like a curse. Just then, Gwen caught up, chanting under her breath as she raised her hands. A surge of water burst forth from her palms. Aqua Arrow. Whoosh! The arrow-shaped torrent transformed into a twisting serpent of water, piercing through the air before slamming into the frenzied vending machine. A blinding flash of electricity exploded as the machine sparked violently, thick black smoke billowing out before it crashed to the ground with a loud thud, motionless. Hearing the commotion, Ben turned around, blinking in disbelief. Saved. But before he could relax, a streak of golden lightning shot from the wrecked machine, instantly diving into a nearby mechanical Tyrannosaurus Rex. Roar! The T-Rex's eyes flared with golden light. It stomped forward, the ground cracking beneath its weight as it charged ferociously at Gwen. Despite the monstrous sight, Gwen stayed calm. She began another incantation, summoning a surge of blue energy beside her. Water Dragon Soul, she called out. A massive azure dragon burst forth with a thunderous roar, coiling through the air before charging head-on at the rampaging T-Rex. Just as the dragon reached its target, the mechanical beast swung its tail in a brutal counterattack. The impact shattered the dragon into a misty spray that slowly dispersed into the air. Roar! The mechanical T-Rex bellowed and charged again, each step shaking the earth. Its massive jaws opened wide, revealing rows of gleaming, razor-sharp fangs as it lunged straight for the frozen Gwen. Her pupils contracted. Terror flooded her chest like a rising tide, freezing her where she stood. "Don't you touch my cousin!" A deep, powerful voice thundered from the side. Crack! Just as the T-Rex's jaws were about to snap shut, a massive brown hand clamped tightly around its neck, stopping it cold. "You're..." Gwen's eyes widened, but then she spotted the Omnitrix on his chest. Relief flooded her face. "It's 'cause you finally came." Humungusaur nodded. "Gwen, get out of here. I'll take care of this one." "Okay." Gwen quickly grabbed Ben and pulled him toward a nearby convenience store. From the entrance, they watched anxiously as the towering alien faced off against the mechanical monster. Moments later, Grandpa arrived and joined them. The three stood at the store's doorway, eyes fixed on the powerful figure in the distance. "Awesome! Is this Cuz's new hero?" Ben exclaimed excitedly. Massive and muscular, with bronzed skin and powerful limbs, the creature radiated an intimidating aura like a prehistoric beast reborn. Its piercing blue eyes locked firmly onto the struggling mechanical Tyrannosaurus, which it restrained with effortless strength. Humungusaur let out a cold snort and hurled the mechanical T-Rex with tremendous force. It slammed into a stone wall, shattering into heaps of metal fragments that sparked with blinding flashes of electricity. "Cuz's strength is incredible. He took down that mechanical T-Rex in one hit," Gwen said in awe. Her water dragon soul hadn't even managed to scratch it before being torn apart, yet Humungusaur had crushed it with a single move. The difference in power was staggering. Grandpa Max stroked his chin thoughtfully. "Looks like a strength-type alien. Judging by its power, it's probably on par with 4 arms. What if they fought each other?" Ben grinned mischievously. "That's impossible, dweeb." Gwen smacked Ben on the head. "The Omnitrix is with Cuz unless someone out there can transform without it. Or another Omnitrix shows up," Ben muttered. Rolling his eyes at her, Ben turned his attention back to the battlefield. Amid the ruins, golden sparks crackled and danced across the broken metal parts before converging into a small black and yellow figure. Buzzshock extended its tiny finger toward Humungusaur and laughed mockingly, as if to say, "You can't even touch me." Ding! Alien hacker mission triggered. Capture Buzzshock. Complete this high-difficulty mission to earn ultra-rare rewards. A series of prompts echoed in Humungusaur's mind. Catching Buzzshock with Humungusaur, that's not going to be easy, he muttered. He sighed, frustrated. He had meant to transform into XLR8, but somehow ended up like this instead. This stupid watch. Humungusaur growled, then kicked off the ground with explosive force, launching himself toward Buzzshock like a cannonball. Buzzshock stuck out its tongue and darted away in a golden flash, effortlessly dodging the charge. In the blink of an eye, it reappeared behind Humungusaur and gave his backside a cheeky tap. Without even turning, Humungusaur swung his massive arm backward, aiming straight for the pest. Buzzshock let out a sharp screech and narrowly avoided his grasp, zipping around him in rapid golden streaks, teasing him from all sides. Enraged, Humongousaur roared and swung wildly, trying in vain to catch the elusive creature. Then his foot slipped on a puddle of melted ice cream. Losing his balance, he toppled forward with a thunderous crash, dazed from the fall. "This won't do. We need to find a way to help Lucian," Grandpa Max said firmly. He scanned the area, and his gaze locked onto a giant thermometer standing not far away. Chapter 47, Humongousaur's First Defeat. Under the scorching sun, the ruins of Sparksville lay scattered buildings and amusement rides reduced to rubble, burn marks everywhere, black cracks spreading across the ground like a spider's web. In the middle of the destruction, a dinosaur and a spark of light clashed fiercely beneath the blazing sky. The battle between Humongousaur and Buzzshock had drawn a crowd. "Oh my god, what kind of monster is that? It's actually fighting that light. Looks like a dinosaur, right? Could that be the legendary humanoid T-Rex? Let's hope it can capture that light. I wouldn't count on it. That big guy looks strong, but he keeps getting tossed around by that thing, totally useless." A blonde girl licked her ice cream and sighed. The mayor, dressed in a blue shirt, sat calmly on a nearby bench, watching Humongousaur chase Buzzshock. "Strange things happen every year," he murmured, "but this year's been something else." Meanwhile, Humongousaur was panting heavily as he pursued Buzzshock. "This thing really knows how to run," he muttered, stopping for a moment to catch his breath. But Buzzshock wasn't about to let him rest. It spun around midair, laughing mockingly as it slapped its rear, stuck out its tongue, and even flipped him off. That was the last straw. Seeing the smug expression on that glowing face, Humongousaur clenched his fists, roared furiously, and charged forward with terrifying speed. Yet again, Buzzshock darted aside with lightning agility, appearing behind Humongousaur and bursting into taunting laughter. Suddenly, a massive hand shot out like a thunderbolt, snatching the little creature out of the air. "Gotcha!" Humongousaur growled, lips curling into a smirk, his deep voice rumbling like thunder. Buzzshock chuckled wickedly, its body blazing with golden electricity. In an instant, a torrent of energy exploded outward, dazzlingly bright. The surge sent Humongousaur flying backward, crashing into a vending machine with tremendous force. Bottles burst and shattered, spraying soda in every direction. Humongousaur slumped on the ground, head hanging. A cracked soda bottle rolled off his brow, cola running down his rough face. His physical defense was exceptional, but against electricity, he was almost helpless. "The humiliated Humongousaur, lives up to the name," Lucian muttered dryly. Forcing himself up again, the giant alien grabbed a nearby rock and hurled it at Buzzshock. With a sharp crack, the little spark turned into a streak of golden lightning and vanished. A moment later, it reappeared directly in front of him, laughing mockingly, refusing to let up. "Damn it!" Humongousaur roared and charged, his iron fists clenched tight. Buzzshock flashed to his ankle, grabbing hold of a steel cable lying on the ground. Humongousaur's legs tangled instantly. Losing his balance, he stumbled forward and crashed face first into the dirt. Buzzshock zipped onto his back, stomping its tiny feet like it was dancing on his spine, its laughter ringing loud and grating. "I've had enough." With a furious roll, Humongousaur sent Buzzshock flying. The little spark hovered a short distance away, shrieking with laughter. Just as Humongousaur prepared to attack again, the Omnitrix on his chest flashed red. A bright light engulfed him, and in the next moment, Lucian stood where the alien had been. Brushing dust from his clothes, Lucian sighed. "Humongousaur, not as easy to handle as I thought." The moment Buzzshock saw Humongousaur disappear, its excitement turned to rage. Screeching, it lunged straight at Lucian. Lucian froze for an instant, then instinctively started to run only to stop mid-step as an idea flashed through his mind. He raised his wrist and thrust it forward, meeting Buzzshock's claw head-on. ZZZZT. The tiny, lightning-charged claw struck the Omnitrix dead on. In the same instant, Lucian's body was flung backward, crashing hard into a deer statue nearby. An electric jolt ran through his body, making Lucian wince, though a faint smile curved his lips. "Success!" he murmured, glancing down at the Omnitrix's yellow screen, a surge of relief and satisfaction rising in his chest. Buzzshock froze where it stood, confusion flashing across its glowing face. It didn't know what had just happened, but seeing Lucian's pleased expression filled it with sudden, irrational fury. Letting out a shrill cry, it flared with dazzling golden light and shot toward Lucian in a violent rush. Not good. Lucian turned on his heel and sprinted without hesitation. Beep! Beep! A small truck sped into view, hauling a massive thermometer in the back. Lucian's eyes narrowed as he spotted Grandpa Max at the wheel, with Ben and Gwen sitting beside him. In moments, the truck screeched to a stop beside him. "Get in. Grandpa's about to give it an unforgettable lesson in electronics." Grandpa Max grinned, a sharp glint in his eyes. Lucian nodded, leaping into the passenger seat. Behind them, Buzzshock, glowing furiously, gave chase with reckless speed, its energy crackling through the air. Then, without warning, the truck dropped the huge thermometer from its bed. It hit the ground hard, standing upright as if planted there. Buzzshock, unable to react in time, slammed straight into it. Golden sparks flared wildly, but it couldn't break free. Ben jumped out of the truck first, eyes bright with excitement. "Nice! Let's see how Sparky gets out of this one." "Haha! That was my idea," Gwen said proudly, hands on her hips. Using the giant thermometer as a lightning rod, the sparks got nowhere to run now. Lucian raised an eyebrow. "Except, isn't Earth itself one giant conductor?" "Zzzt." Before the words had even faded, a powerful electric hum erupted from below. The nearby phone booth, power poles, and soda machines all began to crackle and glow with arcs of golden light. In the next instant, countless Buzzshock clones burst forth, flooding the air in a blinding swarm. The people of Sparksville turned pale as ghosts, trembling in terror. The swarm erupted in eerie laughter, a deafening wave of sound that rippled through the park overhead. The giant display case of toothpicks began to shake violently. Then crash! Enormous toothpicks rained down like spears, whistling through the air as people screamed and scattered, fleeing for their lives. Only the mayor, dressed in his usual blue shirt, remained seated on a bench, expressionless, calmly munching popcorn. Strangely, every single toothpick embedded itself in the ground around him, none so much as grazed his seat. "The world's largest toothpick, ruined just like that, what a shame," he remarked blandly. Ben's eyes widened as he stared up at the sky filled with Buzzshock copies. "Oh man, we're toast." One Buzzshock had already been bad enough, now there were thousands. "Grandpa Max, what do we do?" Gwen asked anxiously, biting her lip. Grandpa Max rubbed his forehead, grimacing. "At this point, even I'm out of ideas." Whoosh! 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 Countless Buzzshock transformed into streams of golden electricity, converging toward a single point before vanishing entirely. Lucian's expression darkened. He had a bad feeling. And sure enough, a massive tremor shook the ground ahead. From the smoke and dust rose a towering robot, its entire body built from models of the 9 planets, from head to limbs. Every Buzzshock had merged into it, powering the enormous planetary robot to life. Its heavy footsteps echoed as it began marching steadily toward the horizon. "Where's it going?" Grandpa Max frowned. Without warning, the mayor appeared behind them, still chewing popcorn, still expressionless. "It's heading for the dam's hydroelectric plant," he said evenly. "It'll absorb as much power as it can, then destroy this city. After that, it'll move on to the next. One after another, until it's satisfied." Ben clenched his fists. "That'll kill tons of people. We can't let Buzzshock get away with this." Ben's right, Lucian said firmly. The Omnitrix on his wrist flashed green once more, ready for transformation. Chapter 48, Chapter 48, Battle at the Dam. Dam Hydroelectric Power Plant. A towering planetary robot stood at the edge of the dam, its body crackling with golden lightning as it swung its massive fists, trying to demolish the colossal structure. Whoosh! A sleek crystal hoverboard streaked through the sky from afar. Lucian stood on it, his expression tense as he gazed down at the giant robot below. Countless buzz shock beams had merged to power the mechanical monstrosity. Each punch it threw carved deep craters into the dam's surface, spreading cracks that leaked streams of water. If this continued, the entire dam would collapse, and the residents downstream would be swallowed by the flood, leaving no trace behind. Realizing the danger, Lucian dove from the air, landing near the robot before retracting the hoverboard. He pressed the Omnitrix. A holographic projection of alien forms appeared before him. Grey matter, swamp fire, rupias, wild mutt. Humungusaur, Ghostfreak. Lucian paused on Humungusaur's projection, then shook his head. Switching to Ghostfreak, he quickly dismissed that option too. Ghostfreak was too unstable. Lucian could feel that its escape was imminent. Transforming into it now would be far too risky. He cycled through the options again, searching for an alien that could counter Buzzshock. Stinkfly? No. It could fly, but it wasn't strong enough to fight a planetary robot or Buzzshock. Upgrade? Also no. Being a metallic life form made it highly conductive, it might be able to possess the robot, but Buzzshock's electricity would fry it instantly. Finally, Lucian stopped on XLR8. You're up. His eyes sharpened as he slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix. As one of the most versatile aliens, XLR8 was perfect for situations like this. Thud. A flash of emerald light erupted. XLR8 looked down at his sleek, black claws, a small smirk forming on his face. ID, XLR8. Current enhancement level, plus 5% speed. Finally got it right this time. In an instant, XLR8 kicked off the ground, becoming a streak of blue light as he sprinted toward the planetary robot at hurricane speed. Within seconds, he closed the distance. The robot remained focused on smashing the dam, completely unaware of the approaching speedster. Ding! Alien hacker mission triggered. Buzzshock is controlling the powerful planetary robot, recklessly destroying the dam. Countless lives are at risk. Mission: defeat the planetary robot and stop its rampage. Reward: random enhancement effect upon completion. A cascade of system messages rang in XLR8's mind. I'll stop you here. In a blur, XLR8 appeared atop the robot's head and unleashed a rapid flurry of kicks, each strike landing like a torrential downpour. The planetary robot froze mid-motion, halting its assault on the dam. Then, it raised a massive fist made of planetary spheres and swung upward, aiming to crush XLR8. Feeling the rush of wind from the swing, XLR8's instincts kicked in. He vanished in a flash of blue. Boom! A deafening impact echoed as the robot's own fist slammed into its head. The massive structure staggered, its balance faltering as its entire frame began to sway. Seeing his opening, XLR8's eyes gleamed. He shot forward, circling the robot at blinding speed. Whoosh! Winds surged violently around the robot as XLR8's movements created a vortex, forming a roaring blue hurricane that lifted the colossal machine off the ground. Once it was suspended in midair, XLR8 abruptly stopped, appearing on a distant boulder in a blur. Without the cyclone's support, the planetary robot plummeted straight down, crashing into the rocky ground below with a thunderous impact. Boom! With a deafening explosion, the planetary robot shattered into countless pieces, scattering brilliant sparks as mechanical parts rained down in every direction. Successfully defeated the planetary robot, saving tens of thousands of downstream residents. Enhanced XLR8's speed by 5%. Current enhancement level, 10% speed. The familiar system notification echoed once again in XLR8's mind. At the same time, he felt his body grow lighter, his movements sharper, faster, more fluid, like a cheetah ready to strike at any moment. Beep! A car horn blared from the edge of the dam. XLR8 turned his head, a glint flashing in his eyes. Perched on top of the rust bucket was an enormous glass jar, gleaming under the sunlight. Its surface reflected blinding light, almost dazzling to look at. Ben leapt out of the van, quickly scrambling onto the roof. He pulled a black cloth from his pocket and draped it over the glass jar. Standing below, Gwen watched her sweaty cousin and smiled lightly. "Not bad, dweeb. Didn't expect you to move so fast. You're just figuring that out, nerd." Ben wiped the sweat from his forehead. "We can't let Buzzshock destroy the dam. Too many people would die. I just hope Cuz's plan actually works," he muttered, glancing toward the covered jar. "Good job, Ben," Grandpa said with a nod. Ben stood tall on the car roof, the sun beating down on him as sweat dripped from his chin, but his eyes stayed firm and determined. "Cuz. We're ready," he called out, waving toward XLR8. At the dam, countless Buzzshock clones crawled out from the wreckage, gathering in the air above the structure. Golden light flared as they fused together, radiating a powerful, electric aura. Hearing Ben's voice, XLR8 flashed an OK sign and turned toward the swarm. "Hey, you little freaks! Let's go 300 rounds! I'll knock every last one of you flat," he shouted, deliberately taunting them with mock arrogance. Buzzshock erupted with rage. Their bodies blazed with electric light as they bared their sharp teeth and surged toward XLR8 in a furious wave. Having lost their planetary robot and their means of absorbing energy from the dam, they were already seething. XLR8's provocation only fanned their anger into a storm. Ben and the others watched as the entire swarm of golden lights flooded down toward XLR8, worry tightening their faces. "There are so many of them. Cuz won't get hurt, right?" Gwen bit her lip, her fingers twitching with the urge to help. But she knew her water magic wouldn't stand a chance against Buzzshock. It might even get in XLR8's way. "Lucian will be fine," Grandpa said calmly, patting her shoulder. "Trust him." Ben clenched his fists. "Relax, geek. XLR8's tough. He'll beat those electric pests for sure." Despite his words, his eyes never left the battlefield. Crackle! Lightning filled the sky, wild and violent. The swarm of Buzzshock shrieked like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey, diving toward XLR8 in unison. "Come at me, all of you!" With that, XLR8's feet blurred as he sprinted across the ground, spinning faster and faster until a massive blue tornado formed. In an instant, the vortex swallowed the entire swarm of Buzzshock into its spiraling core. Chapter 49, The Glowing Glass Jar. Having absorbed every last trace of light, the blue tornado formed by XLR8 blazed into gold, radiating dazzling brilliance and flickering with blinding electrical arcs. After spinning for about half a minute, XLR8 gradually slowed and finally came to a stop. Countless Buzzshock clones drifted down from the sky, tumbling to the ground like scattered sparks. Their eyes were dazed, tiny tongues hanging out as golden stars spun around their heads, both ridiculous and oddly cute. XLR8 scanned the area. The little creatures lay everywhere, packed densely across the ground, at least a few hundred by rough count. Seeing this, he instantly became a streak of blue light, reaching the rust bucket in just a few seconds. "All done. Time to get them into the glass jar." XLR8 jumped onto the van roof and hauled down the oversized glass container. "These little pests are covered in electricity. With glass as an insulator, they won't be able to get out." Before anyone could answer, XLR8 shot off again like a gust of wind, racing back toward the dam. Swish! 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 A rapid blue blur spiraled around the scattered Buzzshock, sweeping them up like a raging storm and flinging them one after another into the jar. XLR-8's speed was unmatched. A few buzz shock began to stir awake, but before they could even blink, a black claw had already grabbed them and tossed them inside. From the moment the sparks fell unconscious, to XLR-8 fetching the rust bucket and returning with the jar, to capturing every last buzz shock, the entire process took less than 10 seconds. It was lightning fast in every sense of the word. He sealed the jar tight, trapping hundreds of buzz shock inside. They pressed their faces against the glass, glowing eyes full of helpless frustration. "Let's see you try any tricks now," XLR-8 said with a smirk. Releasing them was clearly not an option. Soon, the group piled into the rust bucket once more, driving back towards Sparksville. On its roof sat the massive glass jar, glowing so brightly that even the black tarp couldn't fully hide its light. At Sparksville, workers were busy repairing rides, rebuilding damaged areas, and restoring power. Grandpa Max handed the glowing jar to the mayor with a smile. "I hope this incident doesn't hurt your business. I've got too many memories tied to this place. I'd hate to see it shut down." The seemingly run-down park still held a special charm for him. "Thank you for helping Sparksville recapture Buzzshock," the mayor said. His face remained emotionless, but his tone had softened noticeably. He paused, then continued, "As for closing down, you can rest easy. This glowing glass jar will draw in plenty of visitors. We can use this opportunity to make a fortune, bringing in the funds we need to make Sparksville more prosperous than ever." Grandpa Max nodded. "That's good to hear. Of course," the mayor added calmly, "as long as everyone follows the rules." After a short rest, the group set out again, continuing their long, sweltering summer road trip. Ben lounged on the sofa, munching on a bag of sumo slammers. "Hey, cuz, I saw Sparky grab you earlier. You okay?" "What? That little lightning pest dared to touch my cousin." Gwen snapped, clearly annoyed. Lucian shook his head with a faint smile. "It's fine. Just a grab, nothing serious, and honestly, I let it happen on purpose." Ding successfully captured Buzzshock. Ultra rare reward obtained, Replica Omnitrix. Chapter 50, Replica Omnitrix. A familiar chime echoed in Lucian's mind. He froze for a moment, then his heartbeat quickened uncontrollably. He hadn't expected the ultra-rare reward to be another Omnitrix. The question was, how was this replica different from the original? Suppressing his excitement, Lucian steadied himself and walked calmly into the restroom. "System, give me a detailed description of the replica Omnitrix." He spoke silently in his thoughts. Before deciding what to do with the watch, he needed to understand it fully. If it had any side effects that could endanger others, that would be unacceptable. Replica Omnitrix contains 10 original alien force forms. Supports transformation, user protection, and DNA recording functions. Note: this device is not under Azimuth's control and cannot be detected by radar. Random transformations may occur but are limited to the DNA profiles already stored within the watch. Lucian nodded slightly, then summoned the replica Omnitrix into his hand. "Looks identical to the original," he muttered, examining the cool metal surface. Unlike the calibrated Omnitrix on his wrist, which had updated functions and a sleeker design, this one matched the first-generation model in every detail. For instance, his own used 3D holographic projections to select aliens, while the original used flat 2D icons. In that case, Lucian decided firmly, "I'll give this one to Ben." Since it wasn't under Azimuth's control and couldn't be tracked by radar, there'd be no risk of alien criminals like Vilgax finding its user. After weighing the pros and cons, Lucian pushed open the bathroom door and stepped out. He walked straight up to Ben. "Ben, there's something I need to tell you." Ben had been deeply focused on his sumo slammer's game. Hearing his cousin's serious tone, he immediately yanked off his headphones and turned toward him, attentive and expectant. To Ben, his cuz was the ultimate hero, someone who beat down alien monsters and always stood up for what was right. Gwen glanced over too, curiosity glinting in her eyes as she studied her handsome cousin. Lucian pulled the replica watch from behind his back and held it out to Ben. "Cuz, isn't this the watch you had before?" Ben's eyes widened in disbelief. "Oh my gosh, I must be dreaming," Gwen gasped. Lucian cleared his throat and said slowly, "Actually, I didn't just find one watch that day, I found two. Now I'm giving this one to you." "But why?" Ben hesitated, unable to finish his question. Lucian understood what he meant. Ben was probably wondering why he'd waited until now to hand over such a powerful device. But Lucian already had an answer prepared. The Omnitrix's power is immense. If used carelessly, it could hurt you or even innocent people nearby. But your recent actions have shown real growth. I can trust you with this now. Use it wisely to fight evil, protect the innocent, and bring justice wherever you go." Ben stared blankly for a second, then nodded slowly, emotion welling in his eyes. "Dweeb, aren't you going to thank him?" Gwen nudged. Snapping out of it, Ben threw his arms around Lucian, hugging him tightly. "Thank you. Thank you, cuz." At the front of the rust bucket, Grandpa Max heard the noise from the back and frowned. "Ben, settle down back there," he called out, eyes still on the road. "Grandpa's trying to drive." But Ben was too excited to hear him. Clutching the new Omnitrix, he dashed to the front seat, babbling about what had just happened. Max raised an eyebrow. Something about this felt off, though he couldn't pinpoint what. Still, he only smiled, reminding Ben not to misuse the watch, then turned his focus back to driving. In the back, under Lucian's guidance, Ben strapped on the replica Omnitrix. "Cuz, what do I do next?" he asked eagerly. Lucian pointed at the device and said evenly, "Over the next few days, I'll teach you how to use it and how to master the abilities of each alien hero." Author's note: originally, I hadn't planned for Ben to receive the Omnitrix this early, probably not until the mid-arc. I even created the original character Blackfire to give Ben a temporary flame armor as a placeholder. But that would have prevented Kevin 11's appearance. So I scrapped the idea and gave Ben the Omnitrix sooner. After all, as the series' main protagonist, he deserves the spotlight. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake